Is Christine back?
Yes.
She is. All right. 1, 2. Dottie's here. Yep, it looks like all the commissioners here.
Yes, I'm here. I just can't pull up my agenda, so I'm having a little difficulty. I can pull up all the documents that Dom sent me, except the agenda. So could you tell me how you're going to rearrange the agenda, please?
Yeah, when we actually we do a call to order, then the ANC admin matters, and when we get to the point to approve the agenda, we can read it. We can read it out because that's when we'd be setting it, if that makes sense. And maybe Dom could put a copy on the screen as we're doing that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, since all the commissioners appear to be on and it's 7:04, let's bring the January 13th, 2021 meeting of ANC 1A to order. First of all, welcome to the new commissioners and the newly constituted ANC 1A. I think this is a good group of people, so I'm excited to get to work with all of you this year. First off the bat, Commissioner Rybarczyk, would you like to take the roll call?
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone, for the new term. Roll call will start with Commissioner Bonneau.
Present.
Commissioner Lehman Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Rybarczyk, present. Commissioner Hall.
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Wood.
Present.
Commissioner Guarpade.
Present.
Commissioner Bass.
Present.
Commissioner Ray.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Love Wade.
Present.
And Commissioner Clock.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you, Commissioner Rybarczyk. Did you need to read the verification notice? Or is it just enough that it's on?
It should be enough that it's on there, but we notified
Okay.
by listserv, announcement at the previous meeting, social media website, and our calendar.
Okay. Next is to set the agenda or approval of the agenda. I have a couple of recommendations to change the ordering of some things. Is it possible to bring a copy on the screen so Commissioner Love Wade can see it and also give us some visual reference as we're looking at it? So going down the agenda, next would be community announcements, followed by committee reports with the 4 committees: education, public safety, transportation, zoning, parks, and planning. Then we would be followed by presentations, currently with Councilmember Nadeau, Trevorrow Culpepper from PEPCO, Cynthia Tercios from DDOT, and Moises Del Rosario, who is our current Ward 1 MOCR. At this point, I would actually recommend that we move the presentation or the agenda item of Councilmember Nadeau up to be after community announcements and before committee reports, because I know that the public safety updates are important, and I'm sure some people are on the call tonight specifically for those, and I want to be respectful of those with small children that maybe don't want to wait longer. So put a pin in that. That would be followed by the consent agenda. The items currently on the consent agenda are approval of the prior minutes, which are November 2020, approval of the ANC Security Fund payment, reimbursement to Commissioner Rybarczyk for communications expenses, which is the Zoom service we're enjoying, reimbursement of the ANC 1A website expenses to Commissioner Rybarczyk, approval of the FY20 Q4 and FY21 Q1 financial reports, approval of the ANC 1A 2021 meeting calendar, approval of the 2020 ANC 1A annual report. Next would be approval of commission partnership with Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday DC Committee and the Mayor's Youth Leadership Institute Alumni Association for the 2021 MLK Holiday DC Reimagining Public Safety Virtual Forum. And the last item on the consent agenda currently would be approval for Commissioner Rybarczyk and Commissioner Lehman Morales to submit a letter of support for the 311 traffic safety investigation service request 20-00429308 to DDOT with focus to install pedestrian crossing signage at 16th Street and Meridian Place. And then we would
Commissioner
move
Bass,
down. Yes,
I
sir.
did want to flag that for everyone. That was a last minute ad on the part of Commissioner Edmondson before she left, was working on this with a resident in her SMD and had promised to add this to the agenda because the time period is up after this week, just so you know.
Okay. I will also say this is a good point since we do have some newer commissioners. The items on the consent agenda, we usually, as described, consent agenda items do not get discussed. There's just a motion to approve them en masse. That said, if there's any item on the consent agenda, any commissioner can request that that item be removed to official business, where we can then discuss it and vote on it in more detail. Moving on to official business as listed. So the items as listed are, the first one is the resolution on the Parkview School name for the in response to the DC Faces report. 2 is letter of support for DPR for the 2021 Fresh Farm Farmers Market. 3 is the letter regarding language access compliance of information and resources during the COVID-19 pandemic. The 4th was the BZA case 20352, application for 426 Manor Place. 5 was BZA case 20396, which is the raise the existing 2-story attached principal dwelling unit and construction of a new 4-story 9-unit apartment building in the MU4 zone. Don't see an address for that off the top of my head, but that's in 1A07. That would be followed by election of the ANC officers for 2021, and then the establishment and approval of the ANC 1A committees and committee chairs for 2021. I would recommend in the official business that we move the 2 BZA cases, 4 and 5, to be number 1 and 2. I know there are a number of community members on the who are joining us tonight specifically for these cases. So if we could take care of them earlier rather than later, that might be preferred. I don't see the other items as being controversial or taking much time to discuss. So we might want to lead. If anyone's in opposition to that, please let me know.
I move that we accept the agenda as amended by our chair.
Okay, it's been moved. Before we second,
Okay.
I'd also ask, are there any other amendments or changes from other commissioners? Hearing none, is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion to set the agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you all. Then we can now move into community announcements. Anyone joining us tonight has the opportunity to have up to a minute to speak. Because you do need to let us know if you're an attendee, if you can raise your hand, or if you're on the phone and you want to hit *9, please do so that we know that we can give you the opportunity to make an announcement. If it's in reference to one of the following agenda items, you will have an opportunity to speak at that time as well.
Commissioner Bass,
Yes,
can
Commissioner
we
Brett.
start with commissioners or?
Absolutely.
Okay. I do have an announcement.
Okay. We can start with you then.
On January the 6th, residents heard sounds of gunshots at the 400 block of Irving Street and Water. And just wanted to report that MPD was able to show evidence of an unlawful discharge of firearm, which was recovered from the alley. There were no arrests. There were no reported injuries or damage to any property. So I believe this case is still being investigated, but please reach out to MPD if you have any further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Are there any other announcements from commissioners?
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, let me get back to my page. I'm working, of course, from my phone. So I attended a meeting yesterday in my hat as a advisory commissioner for the for hire vehicle department, and I'm working with the accessibility advisory committee. They have a number of concerns about public access for them, especially egress to and from automobiles. So they have a serious concern about the 14th Street project. They have several questions that they would like to have distributed among our commission and our constituents. So I'll make that information available to the commissioners for our next month meeting. But basically, they want to know the impact, both positive and negative, of the bus and bike lanes on 14th Street as it impacts people with disabilities, and not just the also included are the sighted, non-sighted individuals in our community. So I'll have a full report on that, and I'll have the questions to submit to the commission. But I wanted you to be aware that other agencies are looking into the impact that it is having on their public.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Love-Wade. I'll also add that I'm going to be asking the Zoning Parks and Planning Committee to host a discussion at their next meeting on a potential historic district idea for the northern part of my single member district. It's not a guarantee that this commission would support that. However, some of the recent development proposals are quite incompatible architecturally, and I think this is the right time to have a community dialogue where there's a discussion on can the community get behind some of these development proposals, and if not, this would be the other way to go. But we need to have that conversation to let folks know that that is the choice, and it's best to have that discussion before approval of these cases. The one in particular that's recently come up is on Quebec Place. I can guarantee you there will be a lot of opposition to it, but from a zoning perspective, there's very little in the regulations that I see that would prevent it from moving forward. So we have to have a different kind of conversation and then leave it up to the community to tell us how they want us to proceed. And so I would say, Commissioner Ray, I think you've offered to help. I think since that meeting would be next week, I can put together a flyer if I could get your help in delivering it over the weekend so people know about the meeting. And are there other commissioner announcements? If not, we can go to attendees. Oh, Commissioner Ray, you raised your hand.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I did want to update folks because I'm sure they have long forgotten that this commission did vote in favor of a protest against Hook Hall, their renewal of their liquor license. Because of the pandemic, we've been unable to move that forward. And so the parties at this point have requested that we suspend trying to move it forward until after the pandemic. The one good thing is that the offending parties, parties as in dance parties, actually have ceased because of the pandemic. So it hasn't been a concern to the neighbors, but we will likely need to revisit it once we are out of this. But I mean, for the most part, Hook Hall has been doing relatively well, both for the community and for the neighbors. So I hope to get that going again in the future. Anyone who has questions can get in touch with me directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ray. Looking over at attendees, whomever is running the Zoom call, if you could bring up one of the two hands that are raised, that would be great.
Hi, good evening. My name is Carolyn Matthews, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Department of Aging and Community Living. I want to let you know that you can notify the seniors in your ANC that they have begun to vaccinate seniors 65 and older. And the location, Mary Center, is the location for Ward 1. The model cities, I think that's Ward 5, and Washington Senior, I think that's Ward 7 or 8. But there are other locations that are on their website that the mayor had the other day, the vaccinate.org, that you can click on to set up an appointment. The first 6,700 slots have been filled, and we should know something by next week when the next round of vaccines will be available. And one other thing, if you have any seniors 65 or older that would like to be interviewed, let me know, because they're doing research, because they're saying that oftentimes seniors are not included in the data, meaning that they don't get a consensus from the seniors to find out what they want or don't want. And the interviewer is paying $25, and it can be, you can have your name or it can be anonymous. So if you can contact me, and I'll put my email address in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. It's always great to hear you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I think we have Carla Plaza. Looks like there's a hand raised. If we could bring.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Absolutely. Good to see you tonight.
So I'm Carla Plaza. I am a Columbia Heights resident and also Moms Demand Action volunteer. And so what we're trying to do this year as part of our work is to improve relationships with ANCs in order to share information. And so I'm sort of the guinea pig. And so just wanted to put that out there to all the commissioners that we are very much interested in forming a deeper relationship with ANCs throughout the city. And I will try to be the Ward 1 liaison for Moms Demand Action in the ANC.
Excellent. Do we have your contact information so that we can, continue this conversation and start building that relationship?
Probably not. So can you disable the chat and I can put my email in there, or I could email somebody specifically?
Or, I could just say this. I don't know if I put something in the chat, can you see it?
I can see vaccinatedc.gov.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in my email address, and then I can forward it along to the rest of the commission. And we can, how about that?
Commissioner Kent, you only sent it to the panelists, I think. You got a
Oh, you're right.
down menu?
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I'll tell you is that's 08 because it's the single member district. So it's not 1A08, it's 1A08.
That's right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
I have
you.
a question for Ms. Plaza.
Yep.
Sure.
I'm not familiar with your organization. What kind of action are you demanding?
Sorry, I should have gotten the elevator speech. So we're a volunteer-based organization fighting in support for gun sense, protecting DC residents from gun violence. So taking a public health approach and using evidence-based research to advocate for gun sense policies in the district.
Okay.
Oh, the other thing I would recommend to you as well is you might want to make a connection with Commissioner Bonneau, which would be 1A01, because that would be a great fit for our Public Safety Committee as well.
1A, what, can you repeat that
Hers is
again?
1A01, and then the
1A01.
end of it is just like me. So mine's 8, she's 1.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like we have another hand raised, if we could bring them up.
Hi, this is Geneva Sands. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Great, thank you. I wanted to bring up a concern about the bike lane. I'm a resident of the 400 block of Kenyon. Since it was installed, there's been a lot of issues with honking and cars sort of lurching forward to each other at the light, not knowing when the right time to go is based on the new lights that don't quite sync up. And Rashida's been helping me raise this issue with DDOT several times, but so far there's been no response for them. There have already been 3 car accidents on our block since the bike lane was installed. And I know people are very happy with the bike lane, but it feels as though it got installed and then there was no consideration to the effects, negative effects that it's had on the neighborhood. And I'm hoping for some help in figuring out how to navigate dealing with DDOT and maybe making it safer on this street.
Oh, certainly. I will say this, I'm happy to hear you're working with Commissioner Brown. Cynthia Tercios is scheduled for a presentation later in the evening, and she is the Ward 1 liaison with DDOT, so we can definitely bring it up with her. And I will also say, I know that we're still working with DDOT on extending the bike lanes northward. So we should be having a follow-up meeting with DDOT on that issue as well. So I agree with you that we have to look at the safety issues involved and minimizing any negative repercussions. So I'm seeing that, 1, thanks for bringing this up. And 2, I think we have a couple of avenues here in addition to the ones that Commissioner Brown is currently working on. And I know she's working diligently, where we can bring this up and amplify the need.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. And are there any other community? I don't see any other community members who have a community announcement. So seeing none, we will move on to the next agenda item. As amended in the agenda, we said that we would bring Councilmember Nadeau up next. So if we could move, welcome Councilmember Nadeau and say happy 2021.
Happy 2021. How does this work? Do I get the chance to be on camera at all, or we? No.
I would hope. What's the answer to that?
I'll promote you to be a panelist and then you can.
Yeah, that'll work.
I offer my.
I assure you, we can feel safe with Commissioner Nadeau being on the panel.
I hope so, although at any time be interrupted by small children. So there's that.
Well, so you should appreciate that we moved you forward.
Thank you. I do. When you made the comment about the small children, I thought you might have had that in mind. So thank you. But I will, I know the clock is running, so I'm looking at my watch right now. Thank you, commissioners, and welcome to our new commissioners. I think I've had conversations with most of you by now, just to do a little intro. I'll come back another time and give a full update from the council tonight, because we've had a lot of public safety and some very scary incidents last week. I just wanted to give a quick update specifically about what happened Thursday night and Friday night, but if there are questions about other things, we can squeeze those in too. So Thursday, January 7th, there at first at 8 p.m. there were the sound of gunshots at 14th and Euclid. There were no victims there. Now I know this is 1B, but in general, people in Columbia Heights understand the boundary is a little different. There were no victims there, but some property damage, and I will come back to that in a minute. Same night around 9 p.m., police responded to the sounds of gunshots at 13th and Columbia, where there were 4 victims on the scene and a 5th was later identified at the hospital. What we know about this incident is that it stemmed from actually a video that some of the young people, did you hear that? Some of the young people were participating in something known as a diss video, meaning disrespect. This group of young people was filming a video, sort of trying to make a point about being prestigious and cool and putting down another group and another person in particular. And then they tagged their location in the video and it was all on Instagram. And that really, you know, in and of itself, that's just doing their thing. There's nothing wrong about that. There's nothing illegal about that. But unfortunately, it encouraged some folks to come up and shoot at them. And later on that night, while the police were there investigating, there were more gunshots heard down on Harvard Street. And when they investigated that, they found some folks that they arrested in possession of firearms and ammunition. The person who was shot in that incident, this is still being investigated, but everything points to him having discharged his own weapon on his foot, so that it would be considered self-inflicted, but that's not the official word. The official word is it's still being investigated, if that makes sense. Okay. The next day, back to the 14th and Euclid, there were shots fired around that area, 14th and Fairmont, some from a bus, meaning like a drive-by shooting on a bus. And police were able to stop that bus and they've made some arrests. So the Euclid and the Fairmont, the 2 incidents Thursday and Friday were tied together, and the Columbia and the Harvard were tied together. The police are still investigating the cause of the Euclid and Fairmont conflict, but what we know, as I described, the cause of the Columbia-Harvard situation. The reason we know more at Columbia and Harvard is because we have collaborative solutions and violence interrupters present in that community, and they are working and they have relationships with people who will talk to them about what's going on. They were able to find that video and unpack it a little bit. I am doing right now is getting some more resources in place, because we are able to determine where the shooters came from, what neighborhood and what crew they came from. Crews, for those who don't know, is like a localized gang, but they function now more like cliques. These are not like gangs that are running a drug ring or something. They're really just groups of people that are affiliated with each other, friend groups, etc. Anyway, so we don't have the same level of support in the neighborhood that they came from. So while we have collaborative solutions up here in Columbia Heights working and talking to folks about not retaliating and let's not do this type of thing again and let's keep everybody safe, because remember, the people who were the victims were our residents up here in Columbia Heights who were being shot at for the video that they put out, right? There isn't that same level of engagement in this other neighborhood. And so we're trying to get that, so you don't just have the one-sided conversation. You can also say to those folks, hey, we understand you feel disrespected, but that doesn't mean you have to go up and shoot, etc. Now, there have been arrests made. There will be probably more arrests made. The fact that we're mediating the conflict does not mean that that we're not also pursuing all of the things we need to do in the criminal justice system. But I wanted to give you a holistic update than what had been out on Nextdoor, et cetera. And if you have questions, I'm happy to take them, but otherwise I will just make sure everybody knows that Allie's on the call and how to reach her if they need.
Thank you, Council Member. I would also like to say, I believe you've agreed to participate in one of our upcoming Public Safety Committee meetings, where I know that we can really have much more robust conversations about not just this, but the overall public safety concerns and violence in the neighborhood, which can be more meaningful than a couple minutes at the beginning of an ANC meeting can
Absolutely.
provide. That said, I think this is a good opportunity. If there's anyone, any of the commissioners have a question for our council member, or if there's a member of the community who has a question for our council member related to the recent violence, please feel free to raise your hand and let us know. Otherwise, we could look forward to, I see Commissioner Wood has a question.
Yes, thank you. Am I correct? Someone was shooting from a city bus? Is that what was?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. It is, yes. So how do I say this in a way that is not? One of the reasons it's really important to have mediators and conflict resolution and all of that is because when you're engaging with people on a regular basis and building relationships with them, and we're talking about people who are maybe not committing violence now, but could because of the people they hang out with, you can help them make better decisions.
I want you to
right?
this.
So the decision to shoot at somebody from a bus
Clip on my tape.
is maybe not a smart one, right? Obviously it's criminal when you're talking about the guns, but there's a lot of work to be done in our community, a lot of work.
Thank you, Councilmember. I see, we'll go with Commissioner Gorpity.
Gorpity, we're going to get there. It's my first meeting.
We'll
It's all right.
I apologize. And just because the hand's raised, I see, then we'll go to Commissioner Rybarczyk, then Commissioner Hall.
Sure. Thank you, council member, for this information. This is really helpful because I know this was very scary and heartbreaking for folks in the neighborhood. Can you speak a little bit about the violence preventers? Are they through the government or is it through some nonprofit? Yeah, just shed some light into who these young people or community members are.
Yeah, in the district we have violence interruption programs through two offices. One is the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and one is the Office of the Attorney General. The ones that are in the district in Ward 1 are through the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, and they are by contract. And the contractor in Ward 1 is called Collaborative Solutions for Communities, and they are located in Columbia Heights, and they are also this meeting tonight through the Zoom.
Thank you. Commissioner Rybarczyk.
Hi, thank you for being here tonight, council member. I know you mentioned that there, and I noticed this in the Q&A as well, that there obviously is another group who came up to our neighborhood to shoot our residents and neighbors. What else can you share about that? And I know you mentioned that they don't have the same resources available down there. And I know we discussed separately how the ANC could best advocate for those resources, which I'm sure Commissioner Bonneau would also be happy to discuss within the committee in the future as well.
I did just try to send Adam an answer to his question, but I think he had to leave too. So I am not sure I'm allowed to say publicly where the other group is coming from, but I do have that information, and I am working to get the resources there now. One thing that the ANC could do is work with me, actually, or just, you don't need me, is to send a letter to the Office of Contracts and Procurement, asking them to swiftly release the contracts for violence prevention for this fiscal year, because almost ready to go. We're hearing this week, but we've been hearing this week for a little while. And the way I don't know that they have the same sense of urgency that we do, right? Office of Contracts and Procurement does all the contracts for the city, everything from like trucks to, school supplies. And we're talking about violence in people's lives. And so anything we can do to create more of a sense of urgency with them is appreciated. And I have been doing that on my end. The sooner that those contracts are signed, the sooner the staffing can happen.
Do you know, is the ANC able to get a copy of that contract, or at least a description or something we can reference?
Requested one, so if they send it to me, I will send it to you.
That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
Hi, council member. Thanks for being here. My first question was actually similar, Commissioner Barczyk, about logistically why our collaborative solutions people can't go to wherever these mystery people are. I mean, but secondly, do you have any reports or other evidence that shows the effects that collaborative solutions have had on Columbia Heights and Ward 1 generally? What they prevented, what the crime stats have been since they've been implemented? Anything on your website or internal stuff that you can share with the ANC?
Hi, Commissioner. Thanks for that question. So Collaborative Solutions is the one that's going to expand, but they can't just expand without having the staff to do it. So that's what we're working on right now. You don't want to pull the people off of Columbia Heights and put them somewhere else. We need them here. We've been asking the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement to give us the data on these programs. They've been implemented for a couple of years now. So now is about the time that we would. I think that, well, I know Collaborative Solutions has some information on their website about all the people that they've engaged. And keep in mind that this work is somewhat measurable, but not completely measurable. So for example, it's very hard to list out the conflicts that haven't occurred because of their intervention, but we can say these people who were inclined to participate in violence are now not doing that. That part is measurable. So I, like you, very much want more data on this because it's hard to continue advocating for something that I believe in very strongly if I can't demonstrate its efficacy. So for all of us who really believe in this work, we need that. So we're going to continue pushing that office. But in the meantime, I regularly point people to Collaborative Solutions website. They have a section on their violence, and I think it really does illustrate how this all works.
But if we want something that's not, has an obvious conflict of interest, we should go to the Office of Neighborhood and Safety with the police department to get that, or they have not released it yet?
The Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement is an independent entity, but they have not posted that yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
They're gathering that data all across the city.
All right.
And I'll just butt in, Commissioner Hall, I know I've pulled together some of the information that was shared last year during budget oversight that I'm happy to send you to.
Oh, please. Thanks, Zach.
Okay, thanks. And I see Commissioner Love Wade has her hand up. So let's go to Commissioner Love Wade. And I believe you are the last person with a hand raised. So following your question, we will move on the agenda.
Hi, Council Member Nadeau. So good to talk to you. Thank you for your assistance in my swearing in. And also your office's speedy reaching out to me as soon as information was made available about the shootings up in my single member district. My question has to do with additional support for the youth in our community. Prior to the pandemic, there was very little for them to do, and there are very few social programs available to the youth in our community. Since the pandemic, everything is kind of closed, and it just leaves so much idle time on their hands. Many are not seriously addressing their online schooling. We have it's a very, very serious problem. I know that Commissioner Miller, Christine Miller, has been working with the Education Committee trying to address it. Are there any additional resources available to our youth that we could maybe invest in some programs, some additional training, some recreation, something that we can do to help redirect their attention, I think, is what is needed.
I'm nodding along with you, Commissioner, even if you can't see me. It's been really challenging during COVID, right? A lot of the programs that we direct young people to that help occupied and learning and growing have been paused. And that's really challenging because the online versions are just not the same. But we are working really hard to continue providing virtual behavioral health services, counseling, mentoring, tutoring, all of it. And our nonprofits are really the leaders in that area. I would encourage anyone who's concerned or interested in supporting our youth to get to know the nonprofit organizations that are doing this work, whether it's Collaborative Solutions or Latin American Youth Center. There are so many organizations in Ward 1 serving youth that need our support, whether it's volunteering or financial support, in order to keep delivering these services to our youth. You know, there's a light in the end of the tunnel for the pandemic, but these nonprofit organizations are a crucial lifeline. And, you know, we need to keep them afloat before this.
So is any additional funding going to be set to maybe catch up? I know everybody's spending some money, but are you really, we have to spend council there, that are you absolutely our priority?
Commissioner Loveland, I think we're having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
Did you move the phone, Commissioner?
I'm on speaker, so I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Now, yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Maybe because I have my charger in near my speaker, may have been blocking me. But I was just saying that I know the request for resources are great and everybody's pushing for more resources for their projects, but we've just got to put as much emphasis on support and redirecting our youth to more positive outcomes.
So,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, the answer is yes. I've heard a few proposals out there on how we're going to help everybody catch up. And I think the government, the deputy mayor, are trying to decide exactly which way to go. But there are definitely some organizations that are wishing to serve in that capacity to help us with the achievement gap that is growing during COVID, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more question in relation to what you responded to in the Q&A, council member?
Sure.
You said earlier.
If the chairman says so.
We want.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
You said it's not working, or the person who asked the question said it's not working. You said it's not right to say it's not working, and we just talked about how we need data and evidence. What are the markers? What are the goalposts to determine if it is working?
So one of them is how many people are we engaging in alternatives, right? So we have folks who are in neighborhood who may not be violent, but the path that they are on is definitely leading that way, and it's not hard to see that path. And so we intervene upstream. We get folks into jobs, we get folks into programs that take them out of that path. Those are things that are harder to measure, but you know, Collaborative can tell you how many people they've done that for, and that stuff's on their website. So you know what, I think there's still violence in Columbia Heights after all these years. We are going to perpetually having to be investing resources in conflict mediation, because traditionally there have been so many of these different groups in our community, and we're all so close together, right? And it's geographically. So these conflicts are bad. The violence is bad. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you we've solved it, like clearly. But I do know that if we have not been doing the work that we were doing, we would be seeing more. And so we have to do all of these things. We have to make more investments in people in our communities in order to end violence. So that's what I've been focused on. I'm going to keep focusing on it. It's not just the violence interruption piece. It's exactly what Commissioner Love Wade has mentioned with our young people and investing in their education and their opportunities as well. if you're truly interested in ending violence in our community, I hope they'll join me. I hope they'll join Moms Demand Action and others who are advocating for all of the things we need to do to end violence. So I'll leave it there. Chairman, you've been very generous with your time. I look forward to a deeper conversation at the Public Safety Committee meeting. I know folks may also be concerned about what's going on with Inauguration Day. Please, I just did an update of my email list, which we'll put up on the website as well. So you guys can see all the things that we're doing to prepare for Inauguration Day and the rally leading up to it. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Council.
And Ali Boback is on the call. And if you need her, aboback@dccouncil.us. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And we'll work with Ali in your office to schedule a future meeting with you where you can actually talk about the coming year and your legislative updates and all of that, which I'm sure you would. I'm sure you want to do that as well.
I do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners.
Okay, we can now move on to committee reports. Is there a report from the Education Committee?
Monday. Sorry, I'm just pulling up I want to say welcome to the new members on the committee. It was really great to see our new commissioners participate. We looked over what we anticipate needing to do in the next year, looking at the immediate budget season, a couple updates on some issues impacting education, specifically the dissolving of our Committee on Education, which I suspect will put more work on us as a committee and us as a commission to assume the role of oversight and transparency. Sorry. I do want to just comment. I appreciate Commissioner Love-Wade mentioning our community-based organizations. That is a huge part of what we've been working on in the committee, looking at the community-based organizations, our nonprofits that are serving our youth and our families, looking at many of our out-of-school time providers that are doing more than just after-school activities, but a lot of these programs are providing the support that our young people need through tutoring and mentoring. They're providing those important relationships. And so as we are working through this year's budget season, we will certainly be advocating and pushing for those deeper investments in these youth specific and youth related workforce development type activities, so that we are ahead, we're preventive, we're being preventive and not reactionary, and not having these conversations about our young people after they're engaging in activities that we all know don't always lead to the best outcome. So really making sure that they have opportunities, that they have choices, and that we're making sure that we're investing in them now and not in prisons and police after. So I'm really excited. We have, again, lots of fresh energy, and I'm really looking forward to the work that we have ahead. Minutes posted from Monday, and I appreciate the commissioners and committee members who have volunteered to help with a monthly newsletter. So you can look forward to that next month coming out. And I will take this chance to add, if you are in the community and you have issues related to education and youth and you want to get them on the calendar, if it's something that you'd like us to share out to the community, some of the work that you're doing, spotlighting programs, please reach out to me. And we can make sure that ends up in our newsletter and in our conversations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Moving on to Public Safety Committee, Commissioner Bonneau.
I'm actually going to yield to Commissioner Gorpity first.
Okay.
Thanks so much. I'll be quick, but just speaking of community-based organizations and providing youth support, I'm actually hosting an event tomorrow, which is a virtual recruitment fair with 10 different organizations that provide, for the most part, post-secondary, so post-high school, non-college programs. There will be recruiters from City Year, DC Central Kitchen, DC Fire and EMS, the DOES's Office of Apprenticeships, Job Corps, LAYC Career Academy, Smart Local 100, which is a steam fitters and construction trade union, and they provide apprenticeships as well. Others may eat Center for Employment Training, Literacy Lab, and Year Up, all of which I've worked with them. I trust these organizations. I know these recruiters, and they definitely have really strong job placement rates. So if you or anyone that you know, specifically younger people, because a lot of these are AmeriCorps programs that tend to be 18 to 24, but not all of them. So if you are interested, these are all organizations that are looking for applicants, will be opening their applications shortly. So please, please, please shoot me an email, or I see that Commissioner Miller has added to the chat all the information. And I'm also going to put my email in the chat so that if you have any additional questions, you can just reach out directly to me. And please update your Zooms before you join. Otherwise, my life will be terrible. So please, please update your Zoom, and I hope to see you there.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Hi, everyone. Commissioner Bonneau, looking to chair continue chairing the Public Safety Committee this term. And we just heard a valuable update from the council member, which I appreciate. And then as you heard, that conversation will continue. We meet the third Thursday of the month. It's up on our ANC 1A website and calendar. That's at 7 p.m. We would welcome all of you to join that conversation. If you have additional public safety concerns you'd like to bring to the group, please feel free to let me know. Additionally, I did want to mention an event that's coming up related to public safety. So on January 16th, the first in a series of events. This one starts at 1 p.m. and it's on the history of policing in America. And it's put on by the MLK Junior Holiday DC Committee and the Mayor's Youth Leadership Institute Alumni Association. And I've been in touch with some of the organizers, and I think it'll be a great event if you're able to join that. I'll drop the link in the chat. The second event in that series will be February 1st, but I wanted to make sure, since that one on the 16th is coming up here shortly, that you all were made aware of that. We did not meet as a committee in December, so I don't have a December report out, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Moving on to the Transportation Committee, Commissioner Rabarczyk.
Hi, everyone. Really looking forward to this year with the Transportation Committee. Last month, I know we had a special update from DDOT regarding the Crosstown Part 2 of the Crosstown Transportation Project. I know at this month's meeting, we're expecting to have a follow-up meeting presentation, more information from DDOT for that. I know I've had a few folks reach out that are really looking forward to getting involved and had a list of ideas for things for us to focus on. I know a few things that will be discussed tonight, including presentation regarding the livability study that's coming out, something we'll pay attention to along with other committees in the ANC. Also keeping an eye on the WMATA budget and also budget coming out for the district when oversight time comes. So please contact me. I'll put my ANC email in the chat box. We'd love to have you. And we meet on the fourth Tuesday of the month. So this month we're meeting on January 26th at 7 p.m. So thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ray, Zoning, Parks and Planning.
Good evening again, everyone. I just dropped into the chat some future addresses that we'll be reviewing, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But the two cases that we're going to hear tonight, the committee met on and heard from the community for 426 Manor Place and for 3315 11th Street. That's the property right next door to El Chucho. In reviewing those properties, we came up with some suggestions to the to the owners, and they've made some changes, and we will again discuss them a little bit tonight on a more abbreviated plan. We did hear for 426 Manor Place a number of community concerns, and so we'll try to bring where we sit with that particular opportunity this evening, understanding that there is considerable concern from the neighbors for that property. Some of the properties that we are going to have coming up, they will not deal all with this on the 19th because there's just too many, but 3556 13th Street, 616 Quebec Place, 1219 Kenyon Street, 428 Manor Place, 1443 Girard Street, and 3200 13th Street. So it's going to be a very busy couple of months for the committee. And then we'll be voting on all of these things in the coming months as well. So thanks, that's it for now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Moving to presentations, since we've already heard from Councilmember Nadeau, the next one would be Trevorrow Culpepper to speak about the PEPCO Harvard Substation Capital Grid Project. Is Mr. Culpepper, has he joined us? If Mr. Culpepper, if you're there, if you could raise your hand and let us know that you're there, that would be helpful.
Can you say again how to raise your hand if you're not on the Zoom call? It was like star or something.
Yes, *9. Not
Commissioner Brice, I
seeing-
would say we go back if he does
if
show
he
up.
joins us later, we'll circle back to him. So now we can move to Cynthia Tercios from DDOT to talk about the Near Northwest 3 Safety and Mobility Study updates. Cynthia, are you with us tonight? There we go. Yeah, she's
Hi, good evening, everyone. Are you all able to hear me?
we are.
Great. Well, my name is Cynthia Tercios. I'm the Ward 1 specialist at DDOT, and I just wanted to go ahead and share some information with you all. DDOT will kick off the Near Northwest study on safety and mobility on February 16th, 2021. The study seeks a proactive approach to address multimodal improvements at a local level and will focus on short-term recommendations for neighborhood roads that are easily implementable to improve safety and access for all people. The study includes areas within Ward 1, 2, and Ward 6. The first public workshop will introduce the project, share data collected from existing resources, and provide opportunities for participants to share ideas. DDOT will be releasing more details about the upcoming meeting and study websites and the study on the website in the upcoming weeks, and I'll be sure to share that with the ANC as well. If you all have any questions, I'm happy to take those down and follow back up with my team and share any information with you all. But thank you so much for having me tonight. I know that a DDOT concern was brought up earlier today, so I'm happy to share my email address. It's Cynthia, CYNTHIA, Tercios, TURCIOS, 1 at dc.gov. And Commissioner, if you're able to put that in the chat, that might be easier for some to write down as well. I know that sometimes there's misspellings with my last name, but I just want to make sure I get all questions and concerns sent to me. Thank you all so much for having me.
Sure, Cynthia, before you go, I'm
not able to hear you. I can see your mouth moving, Commissioner, but I'm not able to hear you. I don't know if it's because I'm on speaking mode right now, but I can see that you were moving.
Okay, I'll put it in chat then.
Thank you. I see the question in the chat. I got an email from Commissioner Brown earlier about that block, and I'm happy to follow up with her and the resident directly when I get more information on that. If the neighbor is on through Zoom, my email's in the chat. If not, I'm happy to say it again. It's cynthia.tercios1@dc.gov, and I'm more than happy to coordinate a meeting time to meet with both our neighbor and Commissioner Brown to go over the details on that TSA. Thank you. I'm not sure what's wrong with that technical glitch. I'm usually able to still hear you all even though I'm speaking, but thank you so much for having me.
Commissioner or Cynthia, thanks for being here. Are you able to hear me? I'll ask my questions in the chat.
And I put Ms. Tercios's email in the chat as well for people. All right. Next would be Moises Del Rosario, who is our Ward 1 Moker. Let's see if there he is.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, I guess the question is, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear, guys.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Well, first of all, good afternoon. My name is Moises de Rosario. I'm the Ward 1 Liaison for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, also known as MOKers, at your service. First and foremost, congratulations and welcome aboard to our new commissioners. And I do have a few updates that I'm sure the community will want to hear as it relates to vaccination rollout and public safety updates. So phase 2, as we all know, began on Monday, June 22nd, and the mayor has extended the public health crisis until March 31st, 2021. Phase 2 activities that were paused by mayor's order on December 18th will remain paused until 5 a.m. on January 22nd, 2021, one day after inauguration. As it relates to vaccines, on Monday, January 11th, vaccinate.dc.gov, which is the district's vaccine registration portal, was made available for district residents ages 65 and older. And the portal for registration includes a short questionnaire that takes about 5 minutes to complete. Once completed, you'll receive a confirmation code that you should take with you, along with your photo ID to your appointment. And just because I know that this is a concern or questions that neighbors have asked me in the 1A, I want to make it clear, vaccinate.dc.gov is only for scheduling the first dose. So you'll have to contact the provider who administered your first dose to schedule your second appointment. That being said, our seniors have definitely shown a great interest in receiving the vaccine. I really do want to applaud our district seniors who are really stepping up to protect themselves and our communities. As Ms. Matthews mentioned earlier, all 6,700 available appointments for the week of January 11th have been filled, and we're encouraging residents to sign up for an alert on the vaccinate.dc.gov website via email or text message for when the next appointments are going to be made available. And to reduce crowds and to minimize the exposure of the virus, please do not go to a vaccination site without an appointment. Additional appointments will become available as the district receives doses from the federal government. DC is calling on Operation Warp Speed to increase DC's vaccine allotments due to the high demand. And residents ages 65 and older, they can make an appointment also by calling the coronavirus call center at 1-855-363-0333. I'll also provide this information in the chat. Residents can schedule vaccination through the call center Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. until 7 p.m., and then Saturdays from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. And as we go through the phases of vaccinations, just as a reminder, those who have already been vaccinated should still continue to wear masks, socially distance, and practice good hygiene. And lastly, as the public safety update, Mayor Bowser is asking Americans to not come to Washington, D.C. for the 59th presidential inauguration on January 20th, and to instead participate virtually. Please only travel to the central business district if you have essential work. And if you are entering the perimeter, you'll need to show proof of essential work. For updates on public safety, street closures, and transit, you can text INAUG, that's INAUG 2021 to 888-777 for more information on public safety and transit updates. Lastly, guys, Mayor Bowser just really wants to thank the men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department and DC's bravest DC Fire and EMS Department for their heroic efforts, and also Maryland and Virginia for their support of their National Guard and law enforcement on January 6th. And as always, if you guys need anything from Mokers, if there's ever an opportunity to help assist, please feel free to reach out. We're always here to help. I'll provide my contact information in the chat.
Thank you. And I see we have a few questions. So we're going to go through those, starting with Commissioner Love Wade, who has her hand up.
Hi, yes, I'd like to thank you for the great job you're doing with getting the word out about the vaccine and all of the different ways that you can get registered.
Yes, ma'am.
I want you to know you did such a good job that it did too good of a job. I've been inundated by calls from my seniors in my commission and in my family and in my circles.
Yes, ma'am.
That they've tried and tried and tried and they're locked out, and the phones, when you call them, they tell you you're number 200, number 27. It's just all kind of problems, but they're good problems. So I just wanted you to know that your campaign is extremely successful. It's so successful that it's causing a little distress in the senior community.
Yes, ma'am. And I can speak a little about the, we have got reports about some seniors not receiving alerts or, glitches to the site. And we can report that DOH has received the feedback and they're working with the Chief Technology Office to help resolve those issues permanently before the system opens back up. So issues with the alert system, they are being remedied right now, and everyone who's registered for alerts should receive them when appointments become available. And just to your point, I do want to note that people who put their information into the system or, completed a questionnaire before January 11th, they were not registered for an appointment. This was mentioned during the presser today. If you didn't receive an actual date, time, and location, then you're not registered for an appointment, and you will have to, and you'll not automatically receive a appointment notification when they become available. So please, if you did register prior to 1/11 and you didn't get the appointment, please re-register. But yes, ma'am, if you do have any additional questions or anything specifically that, Mokers can help address, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, I'll reach you offline. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
And I see we have a question from Commissioner Lehman Morales.
All right.
Hi, Moses. I just had a quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that the pause on phase 2 reopening is ending at 5 a.m. the day after inauguration.
Yes.
Would you mind reminding the public that's present what that entails in terms of what we can expect to happen once that suspension ends and we go back into phase 2?
Absolutely. I can do a recap of phase two adjustments. The more specific thing that's going to change during the adjustments is, as of the December 23rd at 10 p.m. was the indoor dining pause. So that'll resume at January 22nd at 5 a.m. But just to give a recap about phase 2 adjustments, that includes the limit of outdoor gatherings. So the reduction from 50 to 25 people. Indoor gatherings may not exceed 10 people. Obviously, it doesn't include, restaurants and houses of worship. But however, during that pause, outdoor dining structures, tents, canopies, etc., are still permitted to have up to 2 side flaps or walls, and restaurants may still open until midnight. Alcohol sales, however, the service and consumption alike, excluding carryout and delivery, must end at 10 p.m. Additionally, we did have a lot of questions as it related to gyms. So private trainers and other businesses and recreation centers still have to suspend all indoor group exercises. Outdoor group exercises can continue for up to 25 people. And also, I have a breakdown of what to expect that I'll be more than happy to share with you through email.
Thank you. I see we have a couple of hands up in the attendees. We'll start with the phone number that ends in 482. If it's possible to bring them up.
They may be muted.
They may be.
Hi.
Oh, there we
Hi,
go.
yes, this.
Well, welcome. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, yes. No, I'm sorry. This is actually Travor's Culpepper with Pepco, and I actually logged on a little. I had
Okay.
trouble logging on.
Well, then hold on a minute. I have a question on this before you, and then we will bring you up following for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think the other one is phone number ending in 456.
Yes, this is me, Ken. This is Carolyn Matthews. I want to speak to the MOCA. You know that not only the 855 number was listed for us to call in to get information regarding the vaccine, the vaccinations, but they have been directing people to the 311. And 311, most of those people do not have a clue as to what they're talking about. They're actually referring them to the 855 number, which is being inundated, and they're not being able to get through to get the information that they need. So why would you direct them to 311 if they're not going to be able to get the information that they need to get through for the seniors?
So when they call 311, they can actually be directed to the coronavirus call center. So I can provide the number inside of the chat, but that's specifically for our residents who have, don't have access to internet access, and also for people that don't speak English as a primary language, or also need, American Sign Language interpretations that be able to do the appointment or book the appointment online. But that isn't something that, as someone has mentioned to me before, and I do thank you for bringing it to my attention. I'll see if I can provide some guidance through DOH and follow up with you in Office of Aging through email.
Right, but what I'm saying to you is that everybody on 311, they are not privy or up to date as to the correct information to give to the seniors. That's what I'm saying. Because we had a town hall on this Tuesday, and we discussed it Monday, the Bernice Fontenot Senior Wellness Center and the seniors, and there's a lot of misinformation, and seniors get disappointed or discouraged quickly. So if you could either retrain or remind the people in 311 that they need to know what they're talking about, rather than give misinformation. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am. And I totally understand. Thank you for your comments. I definitely understand that right now during the pandemic, information is vital. And it could definitely be the difference between getting assistance and being able to fight this pandemic and not. And that being said, I'll make sure to take your addresses or your concerns to leadership. And that way we can reach out to DOH in order to get you a response and hopefully try to bridge that gap of miscommunication between our 311 call center so everyone has the same access to information.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions for you, Moises. So we will say thank you and feel free to stay the entire night. Lord, we all have to. You're welcome to stay with us.
Absolutely.
There you go. And we will now move on to Travor's Culpepper from Pepco and loop in that presentation that we skipped over.
Hi, thank you very much, Commissioner Boyce and Dottie Love Wade, and thank you to the entire commission for allowing Pepco to come before you. Just to give a brief update on the Capital Grid project and the Harbor substation construction that's taking place. And first and foremost, welcome to 2021. Happy New Year to everybody. And just wanted to just provide a few updates regarding the project. I know most of you have seen a lot of the construction within the street taking place, especially along 11th Street, Gresham Place, and then along Georgia Avenue as well. So we, as you guys, as everyone may know, the Capital Grid project is a major infrastructure project where we're upgrading facilities, namely the Harvard substation within ANC 1A, and then also installing transmission lines. And that's a lot of the construction that you see along the road on 11th Street, and then, of course, Gresham Place and other areas. And so with the substation itself, I know many of you all, if you haven't seen, we have taken out all of the equipment and have since de-energized the substation. We do have our contractor that's on board who's doing that, which is Clark Construction. So far, they've put up a fence around the substation, have removed all the equipment, and have removed trees along Harvard Street. They will start very soon with shoring up the building, and will start the demolition process towards the end of this month and going into the spring. And they will actually be, starting that demolition process where they'll have steel beams that will be wooden beams that will be actually propping up the substation. So there will be a lot of signage around for pedestrians. You used to could walk along Harvard Street on the sidewalk, and that sidewalk will be temporarily closed, but there will be an area and signage to alert pedestrians on the proper way to walk in that area. And then throughout the year, throughout 2021, you'll see a lot of activity as far as with materials being brought to the substation for the construction. And it will be a lot of trucks that will be coming along Sherman Avenue, going south on Sherman Avenue, delivering materials to the substation site. So the route that they will be taking will actually be going southbound on Sherman Avenue, turning into the substation. And they will be at certain times that they'll be doing that. But it will be further along in the year once you'll see a lot of this activity. We have also started a rodent abatement in the area. So we have hired and contracted out pest control to monitor the rodents in the area. And we know that was a major concern from a lot of the residents, which we've heard. And so we will be continuing to do that on a very frequent basis. And part of the project, once we get into later in the year, there will be a crane that will be required to for the construction as well. And so once materials will start to be shipped to the transported to the site, they will use a crane to put some of the materials in the substation as well as the equipment. So there will be a lot of activity throughout this year at the substation. And we hope to come before the ANC with our contractor to make a more formal presentation with a lot of the details around this. But just wanted to alert everyone about the progress of the substation construction. We have also, as many of you may know, we've had a community advisory group that has been established for the substation construction. We've been posting a lot of those meetings and emailing and mailing them out, as well as emailing them as well to notify residents of those community advisory group meetings. We've had 4 meetings in 2019, and we'll have 4 meetings in 2020, and they were quarterly, and we'll have 4 meetings in 2021. So we do encourage everyone to participate in the public community advisory group meetings, as well as the as well as the standalone PEPCO meetings that we've had. Some of you have received the mailers that we've sent out for meetings in the past. And we definitely want to encourage you all definitely to come out to participate in some of those virtual meetings. We do have also for this project a community relations coordinator that is assigned to the project, and that information is posted definitely along the substation vicinity. So if you go to the substation, you'll have the Capital Grid email and phone number information, as well as a direct contact for any questions that you may have about concerns or any questions that you have about the project itself, is particularly as it relates to the substation. But for those of you who have any further questions or just would like to have more information, please do email Capital Grid at Pepco. That is CAPITAL Grid GRID at pepco.com, or you can contact our project phone number, which is 1-833 Capital Grid. That's 1-833-227-4743. We have a 24/7 hotline, and you can leave your information there, and we'll definitely make sure to follow up with you within 24 to 48 hours on that, as well as the email address. And thank you very much for your time, and we hope to come back with our contractor to give more details at another ANC meeting. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank
I'm
you,
happy to answer the
Dolores.
question.
Yeah, Commissioner Wade, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. Culpepper. At our last community advisory meeting with Pepco, there were a number of members and commissioners from 1B on the line as what as a part of the committee as well. And their issue was the rodent abatement and how far it would go into 1B, because rodents have no concept of borders. And also how far up into 1A it would extend, or would it just still be the 1 square block that the Pepco building is located?
Yes, no, thank you very much. And because of the feedback that we had, we did go ahead and we did extend the rodent abatement west 1 block on the Columbia Road. We heard a lot of feedback that there was an uptick in rodent, uptick there. And then right now we're currently evaluating and working out a plan to see if we can extend beyond that. I know that what we had proposed and what our initial thing was, plan was to just do that within that 1 block radius, but we did extend west 1 block. What we also have done is increase the frequency that we actually have the rodent abatement within the 1 block of the substation itself. So we're actually wanting to work with the city as well to enhance that with our contract as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions regarding related to the Capital Grid or the Harvard Street substation? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Mr. Culpepper, and I look forward to your next update.
No, thank you very much. And thank you all, and Happy New Year.
Great, thank you so much. Now we can move on to the consent agenda. As mentioned earlier, the consent agenda has 9 items on it. First is approval of the prior minutes for November 2020. Second is approval of the ANC Security Fund payment and letter of approval to participate in the Security Fund. Third and fourth are reimbursements to Commissioner Rybarczyk for expenses already incurred for Zoom and our website. The fifth is approval of the FY20 Q4 and FY21 Q1 financial report and spending report. 6 is approval of ANC 1A 2021 meeting calendar. 7, approval of the 2020 ANC 1A annual report. 8, approval of the MLK Junior Holiday DC Committee and Mayor's Youth Leadership Institute Alumni Association for the 2021 MLK Holiday DC Reimagining Public Safety. That's for us to partner. And the last item is for Commissioner Robarczyk and Commissioner Lehman Morales to submit a letter in support of the 311 DDOT service request for installing pedestrian crossing signage at 16th and Meridian Place. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any in opposition? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Moving to official business as reordered. The first item on official business will be BZA case 2035, which is the application for 426 Manor Place. Commissioner Ray, would you like to tee this up coming out of your committee?
Sure. Dom, why don't you, if you could please bring up any plans we might have, but then also to elevate Marty Sullivan. And then we'll get Marty to tell us if there's anyone else from his group that might need to be included. But this is for the conversion of a single family home into 3 units on the Manor Place block. It would also require that we waive the requirement for a single parking spot because the property does not have an alley and therefore cannot install the typical parking that would go behind the building. I believe they will also be requesting relief from the 10-foot rule for the addition to go back further than 10 feet from the home that is next door to them, with the understanding, however, that eventually, as I listed before, we're going to have a case for the home next door as well. So it would actually line the two together, but they would still have to ask for the relief from the 10-foot rule. But as we indicated earlier, we're probably going to hear from a number of neighbors who have been in opposition, and we'll get a sense, at least from some of them, of, what that was. But I don't think we'll need to go into quite as much detail as we did before. I think most of the commission was on those calls. So I would like to hear if there were any updates, in talking to the community, what was any solution able to be found to those concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner Ray. Do we want to turn it over to someone from the property to walk us through the program, just for those who have not been part of those previous conversations?
Yeah, Marty, are you able to walk us through it, or should we elevate somebody else in your staff?
Yeah, the architect Adam Crane is here, and also Matt Scorzafava is here as well. If you could bring them both on, they can take you through it and they can update you on the engagement with the neighbors. One thing, Michael, I'll update on, we just got a determination letter from the zoning administrator today on a different matter, where he says if you're building 2 additions and it's the same owner and you build them at about the same time, he's not going to enforce the 10-foot rule if they both go back to the same distance, or if they're not 10 feet past each other. So that was good. It clears that up a little bit. So we don't need to ask for that.
Okay. I'm assuming Dom is trying to find the other individuals.
Yeah, while you're doing that too, we may have some suggested revisions in response to some of the comments. Would we be able to share those, or should I send them to somebody now while we're talking?
Dom, if you're able to raise one of the individuals to co-host, or whoever would have those plans to co-host, they would be able to share them.
Okay, that would be it.
That'd be me. I can pull up the latest plans and walk through them.
And can you bring, is Matt on as well so he can jump in? Score as a
I
father.
just did that too. Yeah.
I see Matt. Yeah, I
Okay.
can see Matt. Adam may get reset in becoming a co-host if we're able to do that successfully.
Oh, there's Matt. I guess, Matt, we in the last couple of days, we've made some revisions to these plans, which have actually been trimming back the whole mass and scale of it. Matt, do you kind of want to run through some of the conversations you've had with the neighbors that resulted in these trims? And then I'll go walk through.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Matt Scorzafava with the ERB Properties, part of the ownership group of the property. So we did have a ZPP call, I think, last year, and then we followed that up, I think, a week later with a community call, and heard a lot of feedback, which we tried to work with as best we could. And then after that, I had a call with the direct next door neighbors, and have shared a lot of emails with them. And really what I heard is obviously the parking is a concern, which I'm not sure, with no alley, I've kind of said from the beginning, I don't know how we can solve that issue behind our properties. But one of the things that became pretty evident is that the next door neighbor of 428 Manor, 430, already has a rear addition. It's a rear addition on the cellar level, the first floor, but they only have a limited rear addition on the back. And ultimately, they were concerned about not having the use of their deck as much as they do right now. So we decided to cut back the building pretty significantly from what's in the case file. And it's about 300 square feet per floor, or 600 square feet for the whole structure, 1,200 square feet across both proposed properties. And what that does to the exterior is it matches the rear wall of 430 Manor Place on all the 3 lower levels. And also it on the interior, it goes from a 3-bedroom on the upper level to more of like a 2-bedroom den, or a two-bedroom with a junior 3rd bedroom. On the second floor unit, it goes from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. And on the cellar level, it stays a 2-bedroom. The other thing we did here is, because of the exterior deck that the 430 has, we kind of mirrored that plan that we would put a deck on the back of 426. And then we decided to cancel the roof deck for unit number 3. Even though I think it'd be some really nice views and a cool space for the people that ultimately end up living there, I think that I've actually heard a few people on this call say that people don't use their roof decks very much. So this deck right off of the living space and kitchen floor, I think is going to be nice. What that did to the exterior of the property is it removed some of the railings that were up top, and removed some of the parapet. So maybe the building won't feel as tall as it might have felt before. So those are the changes that we made to the exterior of the property. As far as the parking goes, I tried to get creative and figure out if we could solve that solution. On one of the community calls, there was a couple members of the community that mentioned that they were having issues parking, and I was able to notice that they had alley access but didn't have actually a parking space behind their house. So I offered to have our company build a parking space. One of the individuals wasn't interested, but one of the individuals is interested. And we haven't come to an agreement yet, but we would provide that parking space for free. She also wants some fencing and some lighting. And I think that will ultimately, I think she's just having her attorney review the document now. But I don't have a signed agreement yet, so I don't want to set that in stone.
So just though, then to clarify, right now, your case is scheduled to be heard at the end of this month, if I recall?
426 Manor is scheduled to be heard on the 27th, yes.
Okay. I mean, and so my only point in bringing that up is, and again, I don't know, where we're going to be here, But if we're unsure about something as significant as that, then there's the possibility that we would need to ask, that you extend again. Is that a possibility, or what would your thoughts on that part be?
Well, I want to clarify one thing. The direct next door neighbors to 428, 430, I don't believe that they're not in full support of this project. We made the recommendations, or we took their recommendations and moved forward with them because I think it makes a lot of sense, considering they already have the additions on their property, and we're trying to work with them as much as possible. To answer your question, the BZA is backed up a number of months. Marty might be able to speak to that a little better than me. But I think if we delay past the 27th, we probably won't get back in until April.
Okay. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, and we're coming, Michael, we'll be back.
Okay.
Sorry, we'll be back in, I mean, we've got this is just 426, of course.
Yeah.
And the 428 hearing is March 17th. So I don't know if you're taking them together or if that makes a difference. And yeah, the Office of Zoning has told us, don't ask for if you ask for a postponement, expect it to be at least April. They're booked up solid for the next 2 months.
I just wanted to put us all on the same page, timing wise. We'll see where we are tonight.
Well, and I'll be honest, I would prefer I would prefer that it not be rescheduled, only because I think my issue, which we can get into more later, is more of an issue with the entire block and precedent and bigger concerns. So I'm not so sure that kicking the can with this one solves anything, because it's exactly the same as 628 is going to be. So it would just seem to be reordering them, but it's going to be the same issue.
Yeah. Do we want to hear from the community on this?
Yeah, I think that would be wise, but we can start with two. I don't know if all commissioners have had a chance to dig into these plans or if they've had some follow-up questions. So I'd like to start with any questions commissioners have, and then we can hear from the community. And I apologize if I'm not calling on anyone. I see Commissioner Hall, you have your hand raised, but when we're in this kind of view, it's really hard for me to see who's raised a hand. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Hey, thanks, Commissioner Bass. Are there any other 3-unit buildings on this block? And that's just for anyone, any architect or Marty or anyone who knows. Kent, maybe you know, Michael.
I'll say yes in that the one that comes to my mind is the northwest corner of Park Road and Park Place, because that was a lot that was subdivided and there was new construction on the corner. Well, let me put it differently. I'm not so sure it's 3 units. It might be 2.
Is that 435 and 433 Park?
Yeah, I mean, I know that was originally.
Yeah, those are both 2 units. I did those 2. Those are both 2.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. I know it's awfully tall.
But to answer the question directly, I think no.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So throwing that one out to answer the question for Commissioner Hall is no. Everything else on that block right now is no more than 2.
There's purpose-built 4-unit apartments or 4-unit condos and apartments across the street, but I don't think that's in the same category as a row house.
No, because those were built circa 1930, and so they were built as. I mean, they have a larger footprint, they have a low profile, and still it's only 2 stories. And I think I'm guessing in part, Commissioner Hall's question is, this is 3 stories for 3 units, even if they're configured differently due to the smaller footprint.
And you said the neighbor directly adjacent does or does not have a problem with this?
I believe that they're probably here to speak, but I believe they have an issue with the parking. But one of the concerns was the how far back the property was going, and it was going to basically block a lot of their views from their deck. So we've been working together. They expressed concerns, and I feel it's the right thing to do to try to work with as many people as I can and control what we can control, which is some of their concerns about the size of the building. Obviously, I can't provide parking where I don't have an alley.
Well, that's a problem. That's a major problem, because not only are you going to be asking for a variance for that property, but you're going to be asking for a variance for the next property. And so you're going to be bringing in twice as many vehicles to the neighborhood that's already hard pressed, because there is no rear parking or no other alternative parking. So you have a problem that you have to come up with a solution for. I don't think it's on our commission to come up with a solution for you, for your project. I am against this project because of the requirement for parking variances. And I'm very clear at all times on my position on losing valuable parking spaces to homeowners who lived and paid taxes and supported this city through decades.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner Wade. I'm just wondering, would it be helpful to bring up the map that I shared earlier as part of this conversation?
I think, yeah, I think it would. Does
I'm just wondering if it's something
Don
I
have the map as well?
I
Well,
do
if
have
Don
it.
can bring it up, that would be great. Otherwise,
Sure. Give me 1 second.
because I think it helps show. Yeah, that's not it. There we go. So this is the existing condition on the block, which makes it so difficult. You'll note that to the south, which doesn't have the colored lines, is square 3044. And while it has a paltry alley, it does have an alley. The block to the north has an alley. This block is a bit of an anomaly where the lots are quite generous. I think they're very generous. And so that's why I can understand why it would be attractive, because you're going to be able to get your mass without bumping into lot size. But like there's a bigger issue here, and if this were an isolated property on an entire block, where maybe this is the only property that would require parking relief, it's a different conversation than a block that was configured this way, where we end up currently with, I believe it's 25 properties that are never going to be able to meet the off-street parking requirement. It's just impossible. And so that becomes a bit of a bigger policy issue. As far as, does supporting this one become like a series of dominoes where then they're all precedent for each other? And I outlined in green properties that currently have off-street parking. And I will note that the two on the top, on the right and the left, those are with curb cuts, and they're very old. So they're probably from the 1920s. The one in the lower right, even though there's new construction there, it's an old curb cut for the single family home that was once there. And then the 5 on the north side of Park Road, the ones that have parking, the driveways are shared. So half the driveways on one property, half the driveways on another. And they all involve curb cuts. And on the one hand, that's a very difficult situation to recreate for the remaining houses that don't have parking. And 2, one of the neighbors did put in a request from DDOT to put in a curb cut and was denied. So I think it's safe to say that the properties that currently don't have parking on this square probably are never going to have off-street parking. So that then the question becomes, do we reasonably think that the neighborhood can absorb? And I wouldn't just say 25 spaces, because 25 spaces are the off-street parking requirements for all of these properties. But again, if you're required to provide one off-street parking space for 3 units, we know that there's a potential for more than one car going to that unit. So that's the issue. And I know we're going to harp on parking a lot, but I also think it's fair that the other issue that we would really like addressed is trash and recycling storage, because there's no alley. And even though Ward 1 has collection in the alleys, these are all going to be on the sidewalk, and the trash and the garbage, or the garbage and the recycling, are going to be stored in the front. And so how is that stored attractively, one, and securely, where it's not feeding rodents, which is another one. And I know that even on my block, where we all have pretty much the same infrastructure, not everyone realizes how important it is to secure your trash can and dispose of trash appropriately. So we have, I would say the vast majority of my neighbors dispose of trash properly, but the one that doesn't is providing the food supply for all the rats that the rest of us are dealing with. So, and it was mentioned earlier, rats don't know boundaries. They don't know what school district they live in. They don't know which house they're not supposed to go to. They're rats. So I think that's the bigger issue here, is without an alley being here, what is the overall impact? And to Matt, I would say, I know it's not your place to solve this for every property, but I do think that there is a larger issue here that we need to figure out, what's the right policy for this block based on what I would see as a continual erosion and shifting of burden from what currently is what it is to a growing burden as each house potentially gets purchased and redeveloped, and that request comes through. So I hope that was helpful. And I'm sure, I just thought maybe having the map up to give you a visual idea of just what it is, makes it easier to have the conversation, or at least.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Pace, do you think that all these properties over the long term are going to get redeveloped? The 2 properties we purchased were both on the market, and I think they were in not the best condition on the inside, which would, one of them sat on the market for a long time, or for longer than normal. So I could see why these properties would get potentially purchased for redevelopment, but from the neighborhood meetings I've attended, it seems like a lot of these properties are single family homes that are in good condition or have recently been sold.
Well, I don't presume that a property that someone considers to be in good condition doesn't get sold to speculative development. I personally get random phone calls and even texts now out of the blue asking me to sell my house, which annoys me to no end. I know that the 2 houses to your immediate east on Park Place are in some state of redevelopment or renovation. I think they're a little more than shells, though they're not doing an addition. All I can say is the future's longer than the past. And so with enough time, yeah, I think that they can. And I would also say that in some ways, the properties I'd be more concerned with, well, I don't even want to say that. I'd say in some ways, the properties to the south on Park Road have some potential, if and when they're sold, to have even larger development, because they're not row homes, but they're duplexes. So there's that side yard that someone would want to fill in, and we're dealing with that. We're seeing that happen directly on the south side currently, where it's nothing but a facade. So, I think because of the size of the lot, that makes them very attractive, right? Like if you can get past the parking issue, it's not easy to find property with that much land attached to it, right? And part of the reason is because there's no alley gobbling up that land. So yeah, I mean, I'll stop talking now because I really do
I
want to
would
hear
agree
from
with
the
the commissioner.
neighbors. Yes, sir.
I agree. The lots are huge and it looks like it's definitely ripe for redevelopment. Is there any way, I'm looking at Google Maps, in between 443 and 441 Park Road, there looks to be a driveway.
Yeah.
Is there any way that can connect to the backyards of 428 and 426 of Manor? I don't think legally.
You'd have to have an easement over other people's private property.
Oh, it's that Manor Place doesn't abut to that.
Well, Manor Place abuts to that, but those are private driveways. They're not public alleys.
Oh, they're not. Oh, okay, they're not. Oh, they're actually private. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
they're private driveways.
Okay.
Again, that's the issue is you'd be
Yeah.
encroaching upon someone else's property.
I tried.
If I may,
No, I know this is like a Rubik's cube that I know
Yeah.
everyone would like to solve. I just don't know if it's solvable.
Yeah.
Chairman, if I may, I put in the chat, but I'm kind of going along with Commissioner Hall's thought. Is there, when looking at Google Maps, a lot of the properties, the back of them are just green space, which is nice. But is there any thought about making an alley in the back? Because these lots are deep enough, you could get your 3 units further back on a property, but then be giving a public benefit.
Yeah,
that
but
everyone could use.
To create a public alley, you would have to raise 2 houses. You'd have to raise at least 1 house and probably through eminent domain to create that public access.
Well, I guess I would say if it could come through, they're developing 2 units next to each other, two lots. If there's a way, and that's maybe have a pass through or something that would allow people to go into the back. I'm just wondering, in the long term, putting an alley here while there are no structures going all the way to the back of the lots. Now is the time before buildings get very deep. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a nice thought. There's just no way to get an alley there. I mean, every square foot of land is privately owned. So someone's going to have to give up their private property to create an alley. And the question is,
Well, they would actually need to do it. I mean, we can't.
We can't do it. And the city's not going to use eminent domain, so.
At this point.
But everyone could benefit from 2 more parking spaces or something. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to, I mean, not to belabor this. I mean, I'm going to put something out there. I think I know where I am, and I have a feeling that maybe other people do too. I don't know if we want to try and just see where that is, because otherwise this could go on for quite some time. But I'm going to be frank. I'm with you guys that the lack of the alley problem, and there's no way to get around it, and we're just going to have to, see where we're going to have to say no, and then talk to the BZA. But I don't want to curtail if other people have questions or things, but I don't want to waste time either.
Yeah,
That's exactly where I'm going.
Yeah, but before we do that, let's go to neighbors who are here and hear from them. And I would just say, as we go there, feel free to talk to the issues, what you support, what you don't support, why it is. We'll take all that into consideration, and then we can make a motion and move to close. So I see 2 hands raised, 3 hands raised. Let's start at the top. We'll go with Mr. Nassau, and then go down to Lucy, and then Tim Letts, and then we'll pick up the next ones we see.
Hi, can you guys see me, or can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, good enough. I'll keep this quick. I had prepared remarks here, but I'll save it. I just want to make sure you guys got the petition that I circulated earlier. Yes. Okay. Good.
Yep.
Commissioner Clark, we are not going to build an alley. We have these beautiful backyards. It's just never going to happen. you know, when this pandemic is over, I'll invite you over. You can take a look and have a beer with us and see what we got. So, you know, we ask you guys to reject this exception for all the reasons we've talked about. You know, there's already limited parking. The trash, which Commissioner Bass alluded to, is a real issue. You know, we have the garbage bins and the recycling bins on the sidewalk twice a week. And this gentleman wants to add, you know, 4 more, no, I've lost track, a lot more bins, depending on where you start from. It's already, you know, I pushed the stroller down the block and it's really, I'm dodging garbage bins. You know, and then as Commissioner Bass has mentioned, we're talking about setting a precedent here. I'm already exhausted at the thought that I'm going to have to come back here and argue about 428 Manor Place later this month. So start from that, and then it you know, Kent, it's 27 properties. It's not 25.
Okay,
so we're gonna. There's a big precedent here that we're setting here. You know, as regards to the discussion about building a parking spot in our neighbor's backyard, you know, Pam spoke very powerfully against this proposal in November. Kent was in on that discussion. So if she's changed her mind, I'd really like to hear more than just Mr. Scorza-Fava's, you know, say so. I think we got to hear from her. I think so. You know, that doesn't really mean anything to me, and I don't think it should mean anything to you guys. The last thing I want to talk about, you know, I don't know what the lawyer was talking about the 10-foot rule, and they don't need to go through you guys, but you know, I'm concerned about the neighbors on Park Place. If you look at that plat map, the going from a 10-foot rear addition to a 20-foot is gonna, you're gonna have a huge vinyl sided wall at the back of these properties. And right now these guys can see all the way to the sky in the west. I can see their houses from my backyard. And so, you know, and I know one of the guys, you know, have they been noticed? Do they know that this is coming? You know, Nathan in 3522, he's been here for 25 years. So he doesn't even get a chance to comment on this, and we're just gonna go ahead and build this big wall and at the foot of his backyard. You know, I got a problem with that. And I know the ANC takes the community notification very seriously. So, so the last thing I just want to say to sum it up, you know, I'll beg you guys, you know, side with your neighbors and your friends and your constituents, and not a developer from Maryland who's never spent the night on the block. He's never going to have to come home late from the grocery store in the rain and drive around with a crying toddler looking for parking. He's never going to have to push a stroller past the garbage bins, or, you know, have a big wall go up in his backyard that he didn't even get a chance to talk about. Okay, I thank you so much for hearing us and giving us a chance. And I know I got some friends and neighbors who may have something to say as well.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Can we bring Lucy up now?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi guys, this is Lucy. I speak for myself and my husband Alex, and we are the next door neighbors in 430. So really appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. I'll be brief. First, I do want to acknowledge our, you know, Matt's efforts in addressing some of our concerns. We've had some productive conversations with him, you know, specifically about the view and the sort of the views and the light into our second floors. So he sent those plans to us about, I guess, about an hour ago, and we haven't had a chance to look at them in detail, but it sounds like it's going to match our rear wall, both on the second floor and the first floor. And we really appreciate their efforts in making those changes and taking our concerns to heart. That being said, I do want to say that we are still concerned about the parking issue and have let Matt know that. You know, we are some of the newer neighbors to the block. We've been here, I guess, about 2 years now. And even since we've been here, there's been, finding parking has become more and more challenging, just over these 2 years. And I know our neighbors who have been here for much longer have seen a much more dramatic change. So just want to reiterate that we are still concerned about the parking issue and would oppose the parking waiver, but do again really appreciate Matt's efforts to address our concerns on the back design. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's now move to Tim Letts.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, Tim Letts, my wife Diana, and our son live at 438 Manor Place. Appreciate the opportunity to be heard tonight, and also for the dialogue that's been mentioned with the developers that's taken place since the last time we spoke. I do still oppose the special exemption. I think the idea that because there's no alley in the back of our block, that the exception from the parking requirement should necessarily be granted would set a really bad precedent for our block, especially just given that it would immediately apply to two properties that are in question here or will be in question. And I assumed any other properties that would be sold for conversion in the future. And I do think there are other properties that would be, could likely be sold in the near to medium term. And if a 3-unit no parking option was available, I don't know why that wouldn't be the end result. I think the position really suggests that this requirement to add additional parking for conversions greater than 2 units doesn't really exist for our block or any block without an alley, and I don't think that's the intent of the requirement. Obviously, the developers knew there was no alley behind the property when they purchased them. It's the same limitation that we all deal with on this side of the block, and it does have the benefit of the longer lots that we have. But it was a known limitation. Parking is already tight on the block. It will undoubtedly get tighter as more units are converted. But on that note, we just had another home on the south side, I think 432, converted to a 2-unit dwelling, which obviously doesn't require the parking to be added. Both of those units sold well, and understanding that wouldn't be as lucrative of an option, it does seem like a viable alternative here to these current 3-unit plans without the need for these exemptions. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see next going down the list is Vic Edgerton. Just wondering if Don, if you could bring up Vic next.
Looked like the request came back to me.
Yeah.
Mute again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, great. My name is Vic Edgerton. I live at 427 Manor with my wife, Rachel, and my 2 kids, 3-year-old, 6-year-old. We've been here since 2013. We were shopping for 9 months before we bought this place. And one of the things that we really liked about it was our backyard space. I just want to say that Matt did reach out to us to offer to create a parking space in our backyard, because ours is one of the few that does not have a parking space. And, it was a respectful conversation, and I appreciated the outreach, but for us, it's just not tenable. Our kids and now the other kids in our pod use that backyard a lot, to the point where we now have to figure out how to deal with the bare grass that's been worn down. I won't belabor the parking issue. I'll just say that already it feels a little bit like Game of Thrones when it comes to finding a parking space, especially at night. A guy once keyed my car one night a couple of years ago because my car was in a space that he felt like belonged to him. And I know that because I was in the car that at the time that it happened. So, I think I'm a little concerned about the precedent that this would set. It's only going to make that kind of thing worse. I'll add that there are now, by my count, by the time that this thing is built, there will be at least 11 kids under the age of 10 on this block, all of whom are going to be riding their scooters and bike and trying to navigate around these trash cans. And the families are going to be jockeying for parking space. So it's really hard. I'll also say that I think if you want for families to want to come to a neighborhood like this to want to buy houses, I think a lack of parking is going to be a huge disincentive. And I do have some concern that a really bad parking space situation that could result from the precedent that's set here could actually drive down property values. And then the last thing I'll say is on the trash can issue. When it snows or when it's very cold, the sun doesn't hit that side of the street as much. So the snow and the ice sticks around a lot longer, sometimes more than a week or two longer than the other side of the street. So in those circumstances, the kids that are going up and down the street, they're not only dodging recycling bins and trash bins and black ice, and the trash cans are typically tipped over, and I feel like I shouldn't have to train my kids for American Gladiator just to go for a walk. I won't belabor any of the other stuff. I know other people have things to say, and it's been a long meeting. So thank you very much for listening. I do appreciate the opportunity to talk very much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's getting late. If we can bring up, is it Michael Sortwell? And if I mispronounce any names going through here, I apologize. Staring at the screen all day is getting to me.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
You pronounce it great.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Michael Sortwell. My wife, Catherine, and I live at 432 Manor Place. I won't take up too much time. Just wanted to kind of reiterate the parking concerns that our neighbors have shared. One of the other things I just wanted to mention in terms of scope of the impact of this is we're talking about turning 2 single-family homes into 6 units. That could be, up to as many as 12 cars on the street. And there's about room for 16 cars or so on each side of the street. So that could be, almost an entire side of the street taken up by the cars. So just wanted to mention kind of the significance of the impacts. And that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe the next one going down is Wahi Chisholm. Hopefully I was close.
You pronounced it right.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to echo everything that's been said on the block. I'm on the odd side of the block, 435, and coincidentally I don't live there anymore, but I was there today and found it very frustrating. I couldn't find a spot on the block. Probably 5 years ago, I submitted the RPP for the block because of that reason, even though the odd side of the block has parking in the rear for most. But it was quite troubling to see just in this phase of the development how few spots there were, and the ones that were there occupied by construction workers, Pepco, so forth and so on. And I'd point people to the experience at Princeton Place in Georgia Avenue, which I'm very familiar with as well, which is an absolute disaster and has been for years in terms of the live parking during construction and what will occur afterwards. So if there's an example to be taken back, I'll tell you that is probably one of the worst projects I've ever seen ongoing, and it will be worse once it's done in terms of the residential parking. So let's not make the same mistakes.
Very good. Are you at the conclusion?
I'm at the conclusion.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Let's bring up Pamela Robinson next, because I think her hand's been up a while.
Thank you for entertaining my comments tonight. I I do stand by what I said initially in the first meeting when I met, as Daniel Nassa mentioned. Yes, we do have all of the problems that have been referenced, the parking, the trash, the rodents, and all that. With regard to the parking, we have to be real about it. That's not going to change. You cannot put a circle in a square. It's not going to fit. We just don't have the square footage. And I do appreciate Matt reaching out to me to offer rear parking on my property. I reside at 425 Manor. I have been here since 1996. I've been a resident of the Petworth Park View community for 65 years. I've been here all of my life, minus the years I was away in college. But I have seen builders and contractors and investors go and come in renovations, but I do appreciate Matt reaching out because he has tried to work with us, unlike a lot of other investors and builders that have been in this block. And I do support him. Yes, I do. We're not gonna resolve the parking problem. We're not. We're just not. And as an individual who is experiencing major health challenges, physical challenges, I do appreciate the offer. And it's not a matter of one neighbor reference, conquer and divide. I do not perceive it like that. I just appreciate him even trying to amend his plans as referenced by the residents in 430. We haven't had that to happen. You know, we had promises before and disappointments before. So yes, I do support him at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
All right,
let's
let's
move
move
to bringing Victor up.
I think he just has to unmute.
Okay.
Sorry, that was *9 again.
Dom, are you moving to the next person? Is it Josh? Josh V?
I would move to Josh V next. Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Oh.
This is Josh Vogel. I live at 429 Manor Place. You know, I sort of, once again, I'm knowing that this is going long. You know, I think we've hit all of the key points to this. I think the one piece that we haven't also discussed is at some point this pandemic will end and we'll have street sweeping, which, you know, from my perspective, actually means if there are 32 spots on the street, that means on Mondays and Tuesdays, you only have 16 spots on the street. So, you know, I think a lot of us have forgotten it's bad now, but imagine what it's going to be like on Mondays and Tuesdays when half the parking is gone. And the other piece that I'll say is I think Daniel makes a good point with regard to just the last minute changes and not providing the adequate time of consent for the folks on Park Place. And the last piece is, you know, my wife and I actually just welcomed a new child, and I was playing around with, on Tuesday, I was playing around with the stroller and actually did the obstacle course on that side of the street. And it is a little bit dangerous and kind of difficult to maneuver a stroller on this block. So as someone who's a parent of 2 of the 11 children on the block, you know, I strongly do not favor moving forward with this exemption or the increase of space in the back.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Let's take Harlan Kinzer, who I believe is the last person with their hand raised.
Hi, good evening. I live across the street on the other side in 437 Manor Place, Unit 1. And we are one of the circa 1930s condo buildings. We have 4 units and we have parking in the back. And as Kent may recall me saying, I've been here since 2007. The building was converted, I believe, in 2005. And so we are required to follow the rules. And so out of principle, it's kind of infuriating when developers come in and try to get around the rules. And I do appreciate that Matt is trying to work with us. But as I shared before to Kent, when I moved here, I lived here for almost 10 years without a parking permit, without being able to park on the street. Our building continues to follow the rules, and it's costly for us sometimes. And so to have people come in trying to get around the rules is frustrating. And I also shared with Kent that I work in Ward 1 and I live in Ward 1, and for over 10 years, I could not park on the street. And even now, when I have to park on the street, I feel guilty because I'm taking away a spot, a limited spot for somebody that needs it. Additionally, I wanted to bring up the point you were talking about conversion and the possibility of buildings being converted in the future. And some people were saying, yes, it would happen, yet no, it wouldn't. In the time that I've lived here since 2007, 4 to 6 single family homes have already been converted on this block. So I wanted to make that point. And the two final points I wanted to make is speaking to the trash. Warder off of Manor Street is also landlocked, and their trash cans are often on the street. And as somebody who's working from home, who frequently walks in the evenings there, and other people can attest to this, there are rats that are actually like in the cans after it gets dark. And so often when I walk, I have to walk in the bike lane to kind of fend off the rats. And I don't want to see that happening in our block. I don't want to have to walk in the middle of the street, on the street that I live in, and risk getting hit by cars. And then the final thing I want to say is anybody that's been to Manor Place knows we're really tight knit. And I guess all of us showing up tonight really attest to that. And I would hate for the new neighbors to have tension, for us to have tensions with new neighbors before they even get here, because it would really, really take away from the culture of our street.
Thank you, Harlan. I appreciate this. All right, let's go back to commissioners. I will just ask it this way. I think it's pretty clear what the issue is. I don't know if any more discussion is going to be required to change anyone's point of view. If anyone has a question, let me know. Otherwise, I would be comfortable moving forward with a motion. Commissioner Hall, do you have a question? Oh, Commissioner Lovewade.
Yes, I wanted to know if we had the reports from the zoning committee and what their recommendation is.
So at the committee meeting, we decided that the applicant would meet with the neighbors, which obviously they have, and try to see if they could come to a resolution on the parking, which they have not. So therefore, although we did not take a vote, we are at the same place now that we were then, which is, I can't speak for the committee, but again, I'm speaking for myself that we were unable to resolve the problem. So therefore, we are probably going to need to vote in to not support the areas of relief.
Would you like to make that motion?
Well, I see Commissioner Hall has his hand up. I want to see what his question is first, but depending upon his question, I'm happy to make that motion.
No, I don't have a question. Just I thought it was a little unfair for the last neighbor to kind of denigrate this developer. They're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. There's a process, there's a legal process that they can go through to get a special exemption, and they're here trying to do it. And we've heard from the neighbors. We're going to vote on it. And it sounds like Mr. Skorsavova and Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Crane have all been very good developers, and I think that's what we want. We constantly talk about how we want more density, more housing in the city. They're trying to do that. It seems like it's going to come to an impasse in this case, but I don't think there's any reason to call out these people that they're trying to get over on us. And that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Hall. Yeah, and I will say, through our experience, and I know other commissioners feel this way too. Sometimes we get in an unfortunate situation like this, but I would agree that we have some developers that are a lot more focused on trying to do the right thing when they can. The only thing I can recommend, and I think in this process, Mr. I'm going to mispronounce your name, so I'm just going to call you Mr. Matt. I think there's a realization that for anyone listening to this meeting, there's a real benefit with talking to your community reps and your ANCs at the very beginning of the process to see what can and can't happen or what will and won't be supported. I know this commission has worked very hard with other developers to have those conversations before there is even a BZA case filed. And I think Marty, I know you can steer people our way. Please do, because we'd rather have that conversation that in the future than during a BZA case. So that said, I'll put forward a motion that based on the issues inherent for this square where there is no alley, which is having a significant impact on the ability to provide off-street parking and trash and recycling collection and issues related to shifting normally private services to the public space, I would make a motion to oppose this application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Trying to think about how we want to take this vote. We can do a voice vote, but I will say this, if the vote isn't unanimous, we may want to follow it up with a roll call vote just to make sure we have all the votes recorded properly, if that is okay. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, so we have, it's going to be 11-0-1 is going to be the vote. Thank you for everyone's participation. It really was helpful. We will now move to BZA case 20396 for the 9-unit apartment building in the MU4 zone. Commissioner Ray, could you bring that?
Sure. So if I'm sure Dom is trying to get everybody squared away here. When you get a moment, if you can bring up Lee Sheehan. She is the attorney for this case, and then this is the property next door to El Chucho. It is currently a single family home. They'll be converting it into a 9-unit apartment house. They are required to have one parking space because this is in the MU4 zone. This is not a neighborhood. This is not a residential zone neighborhood. This is a mixed use with, as I already said, with restaurants and other places. The difference, unlike the last case that we had, is that this particular developer had identified an available rentable parking spot in the neighborhood and has agreed to include or have us include as part of the order that our support would be a requirement that they include that parking lease in the BZA order, which would then require them to have it, in perpetuity, so that they in fact have the parking space. Now, just that's to all be clear, they would still need the relief, because the BZA requirement is that it be, and maybe I'll get Ms. Sheehan to explain this a little bit better, but the space is going to be in an R1 zone, and that doesn't meet the requirement, but they are in fact going to have a parking space made available. Ms. Sheehan, are you still there?
That is the case. And I was hoping you could also pull up, we should have Brian Athy, the owner, as well as Carrie Kadlachek, my colleague.
I see them coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian, Carrie?
Hi, I'm here.
Yeah, do you want to just confirm what anything that if I was off on anything that I was saying there about the parking and what you're agreeing to?
You were, this is Brian speaking, but you were correct about the parking. It's actually in the MU4 zone also, and we thought it was sufficient to meet the requirement, but Mr. LeGrant, the zoning administrator, stated that because that building needed parking, that, it was technically didn't meet the requirement, but we're willing to maintain that parking space. That was our intention all along, and remains our intention.
Great. And Dom, can you just bring up what the building would generally look like? And then were there any other areas of relief? I didn't think that there were necessarily.
This is it.
It's just that.
Just that. Yes. And you have worked with I know you have worked, but just to confirm, you've worked with the immediate residential neighbor. She understands what you're doing, and I believe that it was her request that that you not touch her chimneys.
That's correct. Yeah, we've tried. We've talked to her daughter. We've reached out to her on several occasions, but she did not want us to touch her chimneys, which is why the design ended up the way that it did. And then we have also spoken to, Norm Veenstra and his partner, who owned the building on the other side.
El Chucho, the restaurant.
El Chucho, yeah, exactly.
Great. And I do appreciate. I was in touch with the GM, so I know that the restaurant was aware of what was going on, and I haven't heard any concerns from them so far. So that was helpful.
I have a good relationship with Norm, and I've known him for a long time. I actually know that the restaurateurs who own Chucho as well, and have talked to them, about this and several other things over the years. So I know all of them well.
Great. And then I believe there is one IZ unit included in the property.
That's correct.
So I'll leave it then, if there are any questions from commissioners. I can't see everyone, so if you're like raising your physical hand, I can't.
I have one question, just because it's parking, and I appreciate that there was a solution, but I want to make, in some ways, just to differentiate this from the case we just heard. This property is not able to provide off-street parking, but it's an anomaly for the block, correct? Like other properties on the block are providing off-street parking, and there is a public alley. There we go. That's helpful to me.
That's right. I think I remember I actually counted them up last time we were meeting with you, and this is one of the few that doesn't have access. Most of them do have off-street alley access. I don't remember the numbers offhand, but it's a way more than a majority of them have off-street parking.
Okay. I just wanted that as a refresher, because I think that's an important point.
I agree.
Good. Commissioner Gropati, this is, of course, your single member district. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything that you may have in terms of questions or thoughts.
I kind of missed this. Thanks for asking if I had a question, because I did. You said that out of the 9 units, only 1 is an IZ unit?
Yes, there's 1 IZ unit in the building. That's the requirement. We're meeting our IZ requirement here. We actually opted into IZ, which gives you more lot occupancy, but you can choose. IZ wouldn't be required otherwise, because it's not 10 units. We've opted in as part of our development strategy and are also, obviously providing the minimum square footage, which
Which is what?
I think it's 8% of the gross here, but Adam could correct me if I'm wrong. It's either 8 or 10. I can't recall offhand. I get a little confused, as to which it is. But regardless, again, opting in, IZ is not, we could build a building with a smaller footprint and not have an IZ unit here, but we're building doing what's called opting into IZ, building a larger building footprint, and then the result is an IZ unit. So.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure if Adam Crane is still on. He's the architect here. If you could bring him in, I think he
is. Again, I'm trying not to belabor a point on which I think there's pretty resounding agreement.
Yes, I'm here in case there's any questions in the plan. So I got kicked out. I'm on both projects.
Oh, sorry, Adam. I didn't realize. I've forgotten that, but you're right.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, there is a 10% IZ requirement. I think one of our strategies here was, we're in respect to the neighbor on the left, the residential neighbor, we're taking pretty massive scoops out of the building. There's a mechanical code requirement that requires us to keep 10 foot clear of the chimneys, which we've done. That really, obviously we lose a lot of potential area there. So the majority of why we're using the IZ here is for the lot occupancy increase that it provides. So what Mr. Athey is actually willing to do is he's giving up an IZ unit as far as the money that can potentially be made on that in exchange for, that's one of 9 units, in exchange for kind of a more mass put to the footprint. So to point out, a lot of that mass is on the lower level, not in the upper levels, and in a rear yard that's not going to be too visible. It's I guess a pedestrian walking access to the alley, so it's a trash alley access.
One other thing that we talked about at the other meeting, and I don't just to make sure that we're clear, there was some talk about the pricing of the units such that if someone was using a Ward 1 voucher, that these units would be within reach of someone using a housing voucher. Can you talk just a moment about that?
Yes, I think as I mentioned in the last time, one of the things in Columbia Heights that some or all may be aware of is that the voucher rents are in many cases higher than the market rents or as high. And so, you really, I think what you're seeing is more folks are doing small voucher program apartment buildings in Columbia Heights because of that. And in this case, we haven't decided what we're going to do, but we very well may do a rental apartment building and rent to folks through the HCVP voucher program. So we're doing that in other locations, and we've developed a lot of for sale condominium product, but also these days we develop an equal number of rental apartment buildings in the city. Some are east of the river, and some are west of the river. Some are voucher, others aren't. But we do a mix.
Great. Now the one ask that I do have is that because you're doing that scoop out, which I understand that that's what the neighbor wants, but someday that neighbor may not live there, and their home is probably going to be developed in a very similar fashion to what you're doing here. So for time forward, some explanation to those residents that one day those balconies may stare at a wall. They got to understand that.
Oh, no, they will. I mean, if the one thing that you know to do, and I'm a lawyer by background and education, is disclose. So if we sell those condos, they'll certainly know. But we haven't made a decision, as to which path we're going to pursue, because it'll be quite some time before we're finished.
Great. Just a reminder to the community, if you raise your hand, this would be an opportunity to ask any questions. And because if we don't, then I think we're going to be close to making our decision.
Yep. I would agree. I would be willing to entertain a motion.
Then I'm good to, I'll do it in this case, Commissioner Gropati, that we would approve or support all of the areas of relief that are requested, with the expressed condition that the BZA order would include a requirement for this development team to have rented parking space, a requirement to include a rented parking space that would be in the neighborhood. Looking for a second.
Okay, so that was a second from Commissioner Hall. So then, having this moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you.
Commissioner Ray, just one clarification. In the resolution you submit to the BZA, can it include the language that we proposed to you about the parking space?
Correct. That's what
Okay,
I'll put into the piece.
Great, thank you.
No problem. And thank you for giving me something that we can work with.
Hey, thank you all for your time. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Right.
All right. Next on the agenda is the ANC resolution requesting DCPS restore the original name to the Parkview School. For background information, and I will say that DCPS is probably not going to move quickly on this, and that there may be a public process in addition to it. But I believe it was the end of August, the DC Faces Working Group, which was put together by the executive branch to review names of buildings, streets, monuments, et cetera, in the District of Columbia, was looking for, and there was an open call for residents to submit named buildings, et cetera, of concern that perhaps of people that did not exemplify DC values. The executive summary of that report identified 21 school names where the names need to be changed, and DCPS has since committed to changing those names. The Bruce Monroe at Parkview School was on that list. And since that's not the original name of the school, and as Parkview was the original name, which makes it one of two schools I'm aware of that was originally named for a neighborhood rather than a person, I think the simplest solution is just to revert back to the original name. I circulated this resolution, I believe, one version of it following our committee of the whole, and then following some need for clarification that Commissioner Bonneau pointed out to me, I updated it and resent it out. I will say that Bell Multicultural is also on that list. I feel differently about this one than Bell in that there's been absolutely no, over the last decade, there's been no conversation about Bell or people even aware of that. This school in particular, the name came about when Michelle Ray and Adrian Fenty as mayor decided to, I'll say, be abusive to the neighborhood. They played bait and switch with whether the Bruce Monroe School was going to be retained or the Parkview School is going to be retained. And ultimately what happened in that bait and switch is they moved this former Bruce Monroe School to the current site with a broken promise that the school would return to that site in a rebuilt new school, which has never been rebuilt. And I think that's reflected, well, and I'll say because of that, while DCPS has a very formal process for school renamings, they did not follow that. And there was zero community input or dialogue about this name change that occurred back in 2007, 2008. And I think it's reflected in some ways. I will be very clear on this. I think the current name in its format, Bruce Monroe Elementary School at Parkview, to me sounds like a name of occupation, because it's like, well, where are the other Bruce Monroe elementary schools? Where's the one at Columbia Heights? Where's the one at Petworth? I mean, it's just really offensively constructed. And I've had, I know many people connected with the school feel very strongly about keeping Bruce Monroe, and I appreciate that, but DCPS has already decided that won't happen. So I think this is the path that makes the most sense for longevity and respect to the neighborhood. So with that, I will be open to any questions before a motion is made. Yes, Commissioner Rybarczyk.
Mr. Base, can you go over, I remember this being brought up briefly last term, some of the opposition to changing the name, just so everyone's on the same page. Can you dive in briefly into what that's consisted of?
You mean the current name, why it's on the list, or the opposition?
Yes.
Yeah. Because, so this all goes into the history, very deeply rooted. So just to be clear for people who may not be aware, there is not, never was, never, nobody famous named Bruce Monroe. Those two words come from the original Bruce School, which was named after, I believe, Kelso Bruce, which was among the first African Americans elected to Congress following the Civil War. Certainly somebody we would love to respect and honor, and his name is still on the Bruce School building at Kenyon and Sherman. Monroe comes from James Monroe, who is a founding father, but he also owned slaves, and that makes him problematic. So it's also noteworthy to keep in mind that because this is the District of Columbia, because this was a segregated city, we also had a segregated school system. So it may be no surprise that the Bruce School was for African-American children, and the original Monroe School was for white children. What happened is as the demographics of the neighborhood started to change and as the African-American population started to grow, man, you're asking me for a lot of history that you probably don't want, but I'm going to give it to you. Like starting around 1923, Monroe School changed use to the black children in the neighborhood because of changes in the demographics, which it's great that the school building went there, but I think it's also a very typical thing where there are very few instances where like the Bruce School was one, Spang-Iron High School was another one. Those were actually purpose-built schools to serve Black education. Other than that, well, the current Cardozo was Central High School, and it was built for white students. And that's where I'm going with this. Frequently, Black students got hand-me-down schools. And that happened with the Monroe School as well. And so I think that like exalting the Bruce School building, which we did when we supported the landmark nomination to add it to the list and protect it in perpetuity, those are noble things that we need to do. The Monroe School was torn down when the Bruce Monroe School was built, which frankly, I don't know, Dottie, how you feel about this, but I think it was a building only a prison could love. It was ugly. And you know, it had
not only was it ugly, it was totally impractical because the entire building was open space concept, and none of the teachers had been trained in open space teaching. It was just another failed project perpetrated against Black people as their, guinea pigs. So
it
was a terrible school. It needed to have been torn down. Yes.
Yeah. And I agree with Commissioner Wade on this. It was very much experimental. I mean, I'm sure it was put forward as being progressive, but it didn't have walls, and it made it difficult to hold classes because you were trying to teach students while they could all hear what the other teachers in other classes are trying to be taught. So it was just not ideal.
I should point out that I was raised in an open school, so.
Well, that explains so much, Commissioner Ray. But yeah, it just didn't meet the needs. So, that building was torn down. I mean, and I will say this as well, because of the way that school was torn down, and I know Commissioner Brown would have opinions of this as well. The damage that Mayor Fenty and Michelle Ray did in this community with tearing that school down with a promise they never intended to keep, and then creating a temporary park that they knew people would get attached to, and then trying to move forward with any type of development program that wasn't in alignment with a fake promise 13 years ago. We're still dealing with this issue with that property and a lot of things, particularly for those of you who have lived on this commission for a while. Just think of the Bruce Monroe Phase 1 development, or excuse me, Park Morton Phase 1 development, which is at the Bruce Monroe site, and had litigation against it. So there's a lot of, I'll say, bad feelings towards that property due to mismanagement from the government level. And I think if this is an opportunity to clean some of that up and to perhaps provide a path forward where residents feel like something was taken away from them without their consent, I would just love to put this forward. Again, if DCPS doesn't want to take our recommendation, but would consider it as part of a larger public process, I'm okay with that too. But I do think that we know that they're going to change the name. We know they've committed to that. I think they should hear from us at the beginning rather than have us trying to chase the bus that just wants to keep driving and not stop to let us on, which is what they've done every other time. So. Are you sorry you asked, Commissioner Robarczyk?
I'm enlightened, thank you.
That's very zen of you. Are there any other questions?
Well, not that anybody asked, but just so we're clear, as we said, Bell Multicultural was named for Alexander Graham Bell, and the concern in his case, it was not a slave-owning person. However, he had a number of issues when it came to the deaf community, and was not particularly helpful in trying to bring along ASL as a language and try to eradicate it in some cases. So that is one of the reasons that he is on the list. So we'll need to deal with that at some point too.
No, but I do think that,
Is the school still called Bell Multicultural? I thought it was the Columbia Heights Education Center.
It is etched into the granite. So while they don't use that name very much, it is on the side of the building.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up because I was very confused.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't even know what that bullet point's referring to. So unless there's other questions, I'll make a motion to.
Sorry.
Yes.
The name is going to be changed, right? This is just to change it to Parkview?
Yeah, this is to restore the original name. The name is going to be changed. We're not stepping outside a lane and recommending something that didn't come out of the executive summary. And part of the reasons why this makes sense, in addition to the history here, is it is a historic building and the name Parkview is carved into the building. So it just makes sense. So let's go back to where we were. I do think it's important to have naming opportunities for that are fully representative of all of DC's prominent residents and our history and all of that. But I do think we have other naming opportunities. Clearly with Bell Multicultural, when that changes, when we get a permanent park at the Park Morton Phase 1 site, that will need to be named. I think we should be looking for naming opportunities, and there may actually be naming opportunities. I suspect some street names will be on that list as well, even though that part of the report hasn't come out. So if something named after a person has to change, I think another person is a fine substitute. In this case, like if Adrian Fenty and Michelle Ray had done nothing and left the name alone, it wouldn't even be on the list. So It's on the list because they were inappropriate. And since Mr. Fenty's no longer my mayor, I can say that. All right. Thanks for that clarification, Commissioner Hall. So I'm going to move to support this resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded and thirded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you all. Next is the letter of support to DPR for the 2021 Fresh Farm Farmers Market season at Columbia Heights Plaza. Commissioner Wood, do you want to introduce that?
Sure. So the Fresh Farm Market is the one that goes into the Civic Plaza, kind of near the Giant and the Chase, and there's 2 condo buildings or apartment buildings right there. And every, I believe, is it Saturday? Am I correct on that?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm losing it. So every Saturday they come and bring vendors, and they take SNAP, they take WIC, EBT, really provide an array of options for low-income people, and also just an array of fresh options for people in the neighborhood. And so I would like to just present this letter for us to kind of offer them our support as an ANC, so they can continue doing operations in the plaza. Also, I'll just note that they clean up the trash when they leave, and that they keep the noise down after 1 p.m. So that's a nice welcome change for the people if you're familiar with that plaza. And that's all. If I can get I don't know, any debate?
I guess just one clarification. So I guess as Commissioner Miller pointed out, they also do add on Wednesdays as well. I don't know if they have music late on Wednesdays typically, and music there on the weekends, but maybe it'd be worth putting Saturday and Wednesday, or just whenever they operate. Is that putting Saturday 10 to 1?
There's no music on Wednesday. It's not offered.
Okay.
Do you still want to do the edit in that case?
Up to you. I don't think it's necessary now. No, thank you.
Just leave it as
Okay.
is.
Are there any other questions relevant to this letter? All right, I will entertain a motion.
Second? I second it.
Well, I think you're making the motion, Commissioner.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, then motion to, sorry, motion to, I guess, approve this letter for Fresh Farm.
I'll second it. I'll make it easy.
Thanks.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. And Commissioner Miller, now can you introduce the letter regarding language access, compliance, and information and resources? And I hope you don't mind that I truncated it.
Commissioner Bass, could Don post that letter on the screen?
Sure, absolutely.
else. This particular aspect of language access is aimed at the mayor. We've been discussing language access in our education and youth committee because of the importance and relevance this has, making sure that our families, our students, our young people are getting resources. And given the diversity in our ANC, having that translated and available in languages that our families and residents are speaking is important. Specific to COVID, one of the challenges that has come up is as information is being shared to our community on COVID related resources, programs, information, that information has not been translated, not a week later, not a couple weeks later, just hasn't been done. And some really glaring areas that we've been struggling with and that I've been working with the Office of Human Rights and other agencies and offices have been locations of meal sites across the city. And then more recently, testing sites. And that also includes having on-site translation. It was brought to my attention along with Commissioner Robarczyk, and I'm not sure others, but we had residents who were trying to get tested, and because there was not a Spanish language speaker on site to help them navigate the applications, they were turned away. And then, of course, now we have vaccination opportunities, and this has not been translated. And I don't know how much time anyone has spent on the DC COVID website. I will say that when you are looking at the web pages, you can do a Google Translate for anybody listening. You can translate it into any of the languages that Google Translate offers. Unfortunately, what happens is when you go to the links of the documents, those are still in English. Another really important aspect of this is those infographics that are coming out. They're not just important to get like clear, concise information out quickly, but for residents who may not be literate, having that available to them with the images is also very important. And having just very clear and concise information for residents. So this is to the mayor. Again, what I would add is that this is specific to her joint information.
Hey, Christine, your audio dropped.
It did? Oh, thank you. This is specific for the Joint Information Center, which is under the mayor. And they're the ones who have been tasked with providing translations of all COVID-related materials. So this is what it's directed at, not the individual agencies. Because from all of the conversations I have had, this is where they've been sending it, and this is where those translations are not happening. So if there are any questions about this?
Yeah, there's a question from Commissioner Brown.
Oh, where?
I just raised my hand.
Where are you? Oh my gosh, you moved. Yes.
Can we request for this to be covered as a vital document, because vital documents are covered are a part of the regs. But I'm wondering if we could be explicit in saying that we request for, any kind of COVID-19 related materials to be translated and requesting that to be considered as a vital document and recognized as vital documents.
Yeah, I mean, all of the items that are being translated are considered vital documents, and the fact that they're not being translated is in violation of the Language Access Act. The district is violating its own law. The particular, and I'm going to actually link some of the documents, and I made it very clear that these are not the only documents that I've identified. But most of our COVID related information is not getting translated. Not when it's requested, not because it should be and it's required by law. It's just not getting translated.
Are we calling that out in the letter?
Of this vital information is not being provided. If you want, how about if I'm not sure what I can send you the link, and if you want to just add in a little bit of language. Okay. Yeah. I will say, Commissioner Love Wade, I did cut it down to one page. So I did cut out quite a bit. So if you would like to add a little bit in, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't think it'll extend it out. I saw where you include vital information, but I'm wondering if we could call out the fact that these are vital documents that.
Yeah,
need-
no, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, I can go back to one of my older versions, which does specifically talk about this being just imperative and critical. And I did use the word vital, but I'll add it back on.
I think what Commissioner Brown is asking is that you use the language vital document. Is that
Right,
correct?
no, I understand. That's what I'm saying. I'll add that back in.
Thank you, Commissioner. Both commissioners.
I can't find my raised hand anymore, so I'm sorry for just calling out. I don't know where it's gone from my screen. I don't know what I did. But on the documents that you're seeing, Commissioner Miller, are they putting anything on there about if you need language access, call this? They're not even doing that. So no,
they're not.
That's pretty bad. So thank you for looking into it.
All right.
Is this something that our MOCA can look into also in the system, Christine?
Commissioner Love Wade, I did have a long conversation with Mr. Del Rosario about this actually several times. He's been looped in as soon as he started. Cynthia was looped in. I mean, this has been going on since COVID started. So our MOCers have been looped into this conversation. The Mayor's Office of Latino Affairs has been looped in on this conversation. And as soon as he joined in, he was looped in on the conversation, and bless his heart for letting me chew his ear off again about it yesterday to catch him up on everything and all of the conversations. And I want to let, for folks who may not know, normally these translations happen through our language access coordinators attached to each office. And sometimes they have in-house translation services, for example, DCPS, because it's so large, because it has so many, so much to translate, and it has its own in-house translation service. But a lot of our agencies push that out to contractors, one of whom we use ourselves for our ANC translations. But because of COVID and the way that the mayor has set it up, COVID related specific information has to go to this joint information. I'm sorry, it's late. Acronyms are not coordinating so well in my head right now. But typically, so that's basically where it's gone to die.
I see we have questions from Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Lehman Morales. So let's take those two questions and then we can move to a motion.
Go ahead, Commissioner Morales. Mine was going to be to do the motion.
Okay. I didn't have so much of a question as more of a comment. Commissioner Miller, I guess this applies to the whole commission. I speak Spanish fluently, so if we ever need to have sort of like an emergency translation or interpretation done internally for at least for the commission, because as I understand it, this translation thing is the duty and responsibility of the city, right? So, and it sounds like we're kind of being held up in a bureaucratic process while this gets done. And I understand it that a lot of this translation services need to be done in light of the pandemic. So a lot of this information needs to go out ASAP or urgently to residents and the like. So while we wait for the city to kind of move along the bureaucratic approval process for this translation service, I'm happy to offer informal ad hoc. I'm not certified or a professional translator by any means, but I do speak a language. So if any commissioner get information out urgently or the like to their commissioners or to their residents, I'm happy to help.
No, and I do appreciate that, and I will certainly tap you in, and we've had great community volunteers who've stepped up to help with translations. But as you identified, it's the city's responsibility to do that. It's not to get that information. And while we may be able to do that for our small segment, they have the entire city they need to serve, and they need to be held accountable for that. And there's also, and this was a conversation I have had with the city as well, especially on issues with COVID. And this is really what, and I don't want to harp, but since Commissioner Bass gave a history lesson, I do want to just share this about our community. What happens a lot of times for our families when you have parents who are not proficient in English or don't speak English is that their children end up doing that translation for them. And having that burden placed on our children, on our young people, one, it's unfair, but especially, and it has happened many times, that information is not communicated accurately, because having a child or having a young person or having anybody who to explain concepts like COVID, pandemic, these are just not in their wheelhouse. And so this important information can get lost. So it is really important, especially as the city works to have a consistent and responsible message about all things COVID, as long, as they're providing our resources, as they're making sure our residents are getting what they need, they have to do it in the languages that serve our communities. And they created this law for themselves. So what we're basically saying is, hey, by the way, stop violating your own law. It's critical. It's critical. These are vital documents. It's as Commissioner Del Rosario, as Mr. Del Rosario was saying, this is a public safety issue as well. So, and I will be taking advantage of you, Commissioner Morales. So thank you.
Happy to help.
Okay, thank you all. Is there a motion?
So if there's no further discussion, I move that we accept this letter to the mayor.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Letter passes. Thank you, Commissioner Miller. I appreciate it. Now to end the night, we have to do election of officers. So the way we'll do this is we'll go through each position in turn and see if there's any nominations. The way I'd like to do is if we get through all the positions, if there's only one nomination, we can vote on all of them as a slate by acclamation. Or if there are multiple people interested in a position, then we will have that removed as a separate item to vote on, if that works for everybody. So with that, I'm opening the floor for nominations. The first nomination will be that of chair. Please let me know if there are any nominations.
I nominate you, Ken.
Yes, I nominate you, Ken.
Noted.
Okay. Sure.
Hold on, I
I'll
need to record these.
Thank you, Commissioner Rabarczyk. Sure, I'll accept the nomination, but the floor is also open if there's anyone else interested in nominating or being nominated for chair. Okay. Moving on to vice chair. The floor is open for nominations. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Commissioner Love Wade for vice chair.
Commissioner Love Wade, do you accept?
Yes, I accept.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, then we'll move on to treasurer. Are there any nominations for treasurer?
I nominate Christine Miller for treasurer.
Commissioner Miller, do you accept?
I do accept.
Okay.
But I don't know if this is the time, but I'd also like to propose a vice chair seat.
You're welcome to work with anyone with whom you wish in a supporting role, that wouldn't be a problem.
In case, I get hit by a bus, I'd like to.
Well, if
Whereas
in that
Saturday,
unfortunate event, we would have to have an election for another one, but that's getting off topic. So
I'll do it if I can give it all to Matt.
yeah, if only. Okay, Commissioner Miller has accepted the nomination for treasurer. Are there any other nominations for the office of treasurer?
Well, Commissioner Lehman Morales was interested in helping Christine. So is that not something we should do now, or?
No,
Well,
okay,
that doesn't-
no, that's what I was asking. Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to make it formal. Again, in case
I don't think
fascinated or something.
I don't think it's any, I mean, we can,
Not now.
yeah, we can make it formal in some way, but this is who signs the checks and what officers go on the website and get reported to the office of the ANC.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
I have no problem with that arrangement. I just need a name. We just need a name on the spot. Last is the position of secretary. Are there any nominations for the position of secretary?
Yeah, let's nominate Zach again.
Commissioner Rabarczyk, would you accept that?
I accept as the last consecutive term for secretary.
Wow, that's so so much energy there. Wow.
Well, you did say consecutive, so we'll get you in 2 years again.
Okay. Are there any? Okay, so you
He's
accept. Are there
who's the guy who said he wouldn't accept and
Yeah. So are there any other nominations for the office of secretary? Okay. So currently those who have been nominated and accepted are Commissioner Bass, myself for chair, Commissioner Love-Wade for vice chair, Commissioner Miller for treasurer, and Commissioner Rabarczyk for secretary. Last time, are there any other nominations? If not, okay, hearing none, then all those in favor of supporting this slate, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those are the officers for 2021. Now,
Congratulations.
I think I earned a chocolate chip cookie. I'm going to reward myself at the end of this. Last on is the establishment and approval of ANC 1A committees and committee chairs for 2021. Currently, ANC 1A has education and youth, grants, public safety, transportation, zoning, planning, or zoning, parks and planning committees. I would recommend that we keep those committees going since they seem to have good momentum. I would also recommend that we not establish any formal committees at this time beyond those, simply because we can create ad hoc committees at any time. And I would much rather prefer to use that process to establish new committees and then vote to make them permanent in our bylaws and update our documents as appropriate once they've got some legs under them, because it can take a lot to set up a committee. And we've had committees in our bylaws in the past that just didn't function, and I don't think that's helpful. So I'm going to do this two ways. First, I'm going to open this for discussion. Do people feel comfortable with keeping those committees? Do they feel like we should add or subtract any committees to that list?
Keep it the way it was.
I'm with those committees.
Okay.
I think I missed, who's the chair of the grants committee?
I am Commissioner Love-Wade.
Yeah, currently it's Commissioner Love-Wade. Now, if we're going to keep those committees, and it sounds like we're comfortable with that, let's discuss who should be chairs of those committees. Currently, Education and Youth is Commissioner Miller, Grants is Commissioner Love-Wade, Public Safety is Commissioner Bonneau, Transportation is Commissioner Rabarczyk, and Zoning, Parks and Planning is Commissioner Ray. We can go through the same process to establish who the chairs are. I presume the current chairs are interested in continuing, but that may not always be true. And I think there's opportunities here for others who are interested and have been engaged to also step up. So let's start with education and youth. And before we go there, I will also say, well, it's not typical. We have had co-chairs in the past. So keep that in mind. So are there any nominations for chair of the Education and Youth Committee?
I nominate Commissioner Miller.
Is there anyone else interested in this? Oh, sorry. Commissioner Miller, do you accept?
Yes, I do accept. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations for chairing the Education and Youth Committee?
Commissioner Miller, I'll co-chair it with you.
Yay.
Okay.
I just want to say that that gives us most of our commission on the Ed and Youth Committee. So thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Miller, are you agreeable to co-chairing with Commissioner Brown?
Yes, it would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Okay, hearing none, then I would say Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Brown are co-chairs of Education and Youth by acclamation. The Grants Committee, is there a nomination for chair of the Grants Committee?
I nominate Commissioner Love-Wade.
Okay, Commissioner Love-Wade, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Are there any other nominations for chair of the Grants Committee? Are there any other nominations for chair of the Grants Committee? Okay, hearing none, Commissioner Love-Wade, by acclamation, you will continue in that role. Moving on to Public Safety, are there any nominations for chairing the Public Safety Committee?
I nominate Commissioner Bonneau and Commissioner Wood as co-chairs. Is it possible to do that?
Okay, Commissioner Bonneau, I'll ask you in turn. Are you comfortable? Do you accept that nomination?
I accept, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Wood, would you accept that nomination?
I do.
And to both of you, do you accept the nomination to be co-chairs? I just want to make perfectly clear.
You're married
Are you
now.
going to pronounce us co-chairs?
Congratulations.
Awfully formal.
Mr. Co-Chair and Ms. Co-Chair, you may now speak to the co-chair. Well, no, I will say the reason I'm asking this is because I want to make sure that we have a co-chair relationship versus two candidates running for chair. It makes a difference in how we vote. Are there any other nominations for chair or co-chair of the Public Safety Committee? Okay, hearing none, then I will say Commissioners Bonneau and Wood, you are by acclamation co-chairs of Public Safety. Moving on to Transportation.
Excuse me, point of order.
Yes, Commissioner Love-Wade.
Yes, I'd like for you to announce again to the public that the committees are open for all to serve on.
Oh, absolutely.
And that they can also chair these committees.
Okay, Commissioner Love-Wade is correct. Members of the community are able to be on the committees and to chair the committees. And with that said, I would also, even though we still have a few more committees to go through, I would recommend to all of the chairs in these committees to work with the community to find interested community members to be members on the committee rather than just participants in the meetings. I will say that it is a wonderful way for any member of the community to be more involved and participate in the ANC function. Thank you, Commissioner Love-Wade. Okay, moving on to the Transportation Committee. Are there any nominations for chair of the committee?
Commissioner Bass, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Robarczyk. to continue on as his role, in his role.
Commissioner Rabarczyk, do you accept?
I accept.
Okay, are there any other nominations for chair of the Transportation Committee? Okay, going once, going twice. Commissioner Rabarczyk, you, by acclamation, will continue being chair of the Transportation Committee. Lastly is Zoning, Parks, and Planning Committee. Do we have any nominations for chair of the Zoning, Parks, and Planning Committee?
I nominate Commissioner Ray.
Commissioner Ray, do you accept?
I do.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for chair of the Zoning, Parks, and Planning Committee?
I don't have a nomination, but I have a question.
Sure.
Is that committee also where not BZA cases, where ABRA cases are being considered and reviewed?
No, traditionally, sorry to jump in again, I don't have a reason. Traditionally, we had a ABRA specific committee. I believe it is in the bylaws. So it's been ad hoc, really. We'd have it.
Okay, thank you.
But I will say, I mean, even though we're in the middle of this, I will say that if we have a flurry of ABRA applications that come up, probably as we're coming out of COVID, because things are pretty strange right now with ABRA licenses, we can reconstitute that committee in an ad hoc basis as needed. And I would actually encourage that. Okay, are there any other nominations for chair of the Zoning, Parks, and Planning Committee? Hearing none, Commissioner Ray, you will continue by acclamation. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. So I would move to end this meeting of ANC 1A at 10:24 p.m. on January 13th. Is there a second? You're all as fast with that. All those in favor say aye.
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 Great meeting.
Thank you all for your perseverance, everyone.
Oh
See
boy.
Uh,
Next meeting, February 10th, Wednesday.
And I may not be here for the next two.
What?
I may not be here for the next cow and the next meeting. I'm going to be in South Carolina for the first 2 weeks of February.
Okay.
You don't have internet there?
I know.
I'm envious.
What's that?
I'm envious.
You don't have
Yeah, well, that's why I'm leaving here.
Well, thanks, Chris. I know it got late.
Yeah.
Night all.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, please take care. Lord bless us for making it through.
Everyone.
You did it.
Talk to you soon.